General Spalding, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate you taking the time to have a conversation with me. Would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself before we get started?
Yeah, sure. I was in the Air Force almost 30 years, mostly flying B-2s, spent a lot of time in China, and now I'm the CEO of a startup called Simper.
Cool. What does your startup do?
We build hardened infrastructure for both military and commercial use. So think of 5G networks, data centers, all in a single hardened package.
Nice. So the topic today was, does China have a plan for global domination? Could you tell me more about your position on that?
Well, they have a plan to stay in power. The Chinese Communist Party does, and in order for them to stay in power, they feel it's necessary for them to reduce support for liberal democratic values globally. And so, if when you say global domination, you mean, do they have a plan to make the world friendly for authoritarianism? Absolutely, and they see it as necessary for their survival. So much in the same way the United States, worked after the World War II, throughout the Cold War, and still does, to try to preserve democracy as a thing in the world. I think the Chinese Communist Party seeks to do the same for their brand of government, and I think they're being very successful.
And why do you think that they are opposed to democracy?
Well, I mean, as you can imagine, any political party seeks to preserve itself, and in China, there's a single party, and that single party rules. So they don't want to see another party, rise to challenge it within China. Um, it would be the same thing in the United States if you had a single party that was able to gain total control of the country, all the police, all the military, all the courts, the legislature. They wouldn't want to give up that power, and Chinese Communist Party is no different. Politics is part of humanity. It's something that people do kind of naturally. It's also the reason why our founders created separation of powers. They recognize that allowing any one group to have dominance over any other group within the governing structure of the country would create the opportunity for tyranny. And so the legislature, the executive branch, the judicial branch have a separation and have their own authorities and responsibilities. And they thought that was the best way to prevent the company or country from sliding into tyranny. That doesn't exist in China. China has two constitutions: the People's Republic of China Constitution, which is the one that they trot out as being the official constitution, and then they have the Chinese Communist Party Constitution. The only problem is the Chinese Communist Party Constitution says the Chinese Communist Party is the leading authority in the country, and so literally every government organ has basically a Communist Party patina over the top that basically ensures that the Communist Party controls all elements of government. The thing that Xi Jinping was concerned about was the fact that business was becoming too independent and gaining power of its own, and so he's worked now through things like placing people on the boards of major companies and owning golden shares, allowing the party to own golden shares to basically, and then firing a bunch of billionaires to grab control of the public sector. So now it's the country, in terms of the government and the public, private companies, are now firmly under the control of the Chinese Communist Party, which is how that single party system seeks to survive and thrive.
Well, China's claimed to have multiple parties and to be democratic. They even have a Democratic Party, apparently.
Yeah, they do. They have lots of parties, and that allows them to basically say that they are a multi-party state, but none of those parties have any power or influence in the country.
Right. I think there's even a Taiwan Independent Party, and that party is specifically for not Taiwan independence and thinks it should be run by China, I believe. So it seems like they've put in a political system to be specifically anti-democratic, but why do you think they're afraid of democracy? Do you think if their country was democratic that they would oust the people in power?
Well, why do you think, corporations are afraid of competitors? They want to dominate the market. I mean, it's the same thing in politics. It is in business. It's the same just about anywhere in human civilization in any field. Who's ever in power wants to stay in power, and they want to because they believe that they would be the this in the case of the Chinese Communist Party, they think China will be great if the Chinese Communist Party is in power, and they don't see that any other organ could do any better. So they don't want to allow any other to have the power to basically compete with them, or even create a threat to the party's rule. So the when you look at kind of you know our Republican, that's really prior to a lot of the what I would call the duopoly that's formed in the last several decades here in the United States. Having parties that compete for power is how we get gridlock in a lot of times in government. We're not nearly as efficient as changing policies or moving things in the direction they want to go. I would say that's gotten a lot, you know, less so over the last couple of decades, particularly with the rise of consolidation of corporate power, the internet, social media, and the almost the combining of the corporate sector, the financial sector, and the media sector, along with the political system to really start to change the nature of how both policies are adopted and implemented in our country. So that's the way that the Chinese Communist Party likes to run. I think over one of the challenges it has, and we saw it during the coronavirus, that when you have policies that move through the system really quickly, without any checks and balances, then you have things that can sometimes harm people. Things like lockdowns, things like school closures. Things like vaccinations to young kids or infants. These are things that move fast did move fast during the coronavirus. A lot of them under the auspices of the Chinese Communist Party and adopted in the free societies. So it's a really good, I think, testament to why we want to have separation of power and why we want to have a more deliberate and thoughtful governance, and why our founding fathers sought to separate power so we didn't get into these situations where we did things where people didn't have the right to basically not consent or dissent.
Yeah, in China, they had a lot of protests specifically related to the lockdowns, and protests are like illegal in China, I believe, and so there was pretty severe punishments for people who protested. And given the fact that people are willing to take the initiative to go against those very harsh laws and still protest against them, shows just how harmful they must have been for the Chinese people.
Yeah, and it just gives you an indication of how powerful the government is to be able to have kept them for so long. And the power is not at the point of a gun. It's really using all the tools of technology that Silicon Valley developed. So in many ways, if you look at the population, they were terrified. They were terrified to come out of their apartments and houses because they believed that they were going to die, and that was all based on the media and social media and all the stuff that was coming out of the party propaganda organs that kept them that way. And so, in many ways, it's just a testament to the power of fear and how people will turn over their rights if they believe that it'll be what's required to save their life.
So you said you believe China was very successful at their propaganda machine in order to keep themselves in power. What things do you think they've done to be successful?
Well, they've embraced. So you look at the thing with Cambridge Analytica and the use of Facebook data to essentially influence people, in an election here in the United States. So imagine that like writ large for the entire society. So they've embraced these tools of sentiment analysis when we created the internet, the next step that we took was the mobile internet with the introduction of the iPhone and the ability to collect all this data on people. And I think collecting that data, creating sentiment analysis, and then being able to use that sentiment analysis in mass at the individual level is really the power that the Silicon Valley unleashed. And the Chinese Communist Party, Silicon Valley just wanted to make money. Chinese Communist Party wants to make money, but they also want to control. So it's not just the economic and the financial; it's the social and political and the cultural that they seek to influence. And so they have these tools now that Silicon Valley developed, and they were supposed to be, or at least they were felt to be, fairly not benign, but certainly more in line of promoting Western liberal values. But what you find is that your ability to aggregate mass amounts of data is equivalent to aggregating power, and so that power comes through analyzing that data and then creating sentiment analysis and then using that to influence people's perceptions, beliefs, behavior patterns. And this is what we've seen kind of on a mass scale in the 21st century. And so when you think of the elements of warfare, which is using military force to coerce an opponent to come over to your way of thinking. Here we're using the tools of Silicon Valley to really just change that way of thinking slowly over time in a way that doesn't require force. And I think that's the amazing thing that in many ways I think the West created the tools that will be its downfall, and it still hasn't come to grips with the fact that that these tools are even being used against it in many ways. I think our military is focused much more on the pointy end of the stick and weapons when it's the information domain and it's the cognitive domain that the Chinese Communist Party has sought to seek the high ground. That's why Kai-Fu Lee says that China seeks to become the Saudi Arabia of data. They want to be the powerhouse in artificial intelligence and basically building a world where they understand how people think, and then they can begin to manipulate how people think.
And you said it was going to lead to the downfall potentially. You think that America is behind China on this, or that America is not also in the information game to such an extent that they would actually lose power because of this
Well, I
difference?
think, I think if we had a political party in the United States that could embrace and control all the elements of Silicon Valley and globalization to its own ends, then I think we'd have a pretty good competitor. People don't understand that, in terms of the way the Chinese Communist Party fights war, the best organs that are prepared to understand and compete with the Chinese Communist Party are the political parties in the United States themselves. They understand because they're competing against each other. In reality, they're competing against each other when a third party is out there, basically competing against both of them, and to the detriment of our way of life. So political warfare is the thing. It is the thing of the 21st century, and it is the internet and globalization, really the ability to have these financial and economic and trade relations that span borders. That is the thing that enables it to be a global phenomenon. So the same way that airplanes and the internet and computing and stealth and GPS gave the U.S. military the ability to be a global force. The internet and globalization gave the Chinese military the ability to be a global political force, and that's what they're doing.
But I'm still curious about the part where you said it's going to lead to the downfall of the United States, because as far as I know, even though I agree that the American political parties don't take it as seriously, we still do have a lot of information. And the Silicon Valley people are keeping all of this information and using it to the same extent as the Chinese Communist Party are, but obviously to make money rather than to try to influence people to the same extent. And we do see a lot of political influence being utilized in the spaces. So what about the Chinese party's implementation of this information is significant enough to put a threat to the our way of life or democracy? Because it seems like we're essentially using it in the same way, and especially with artificial intelligence, I think we're pretty significantly far ahead.
So, you would consider that America came up with lockdowns and America is the one that's decided not to investigate where coronavirus came from and how the policies related to coronavirus were spread. I mean, there's no better example of how. I mean, go look in the pandemic protocols that CDC had prior to the coronavirus. There is no such thing as wearing masks and lockdowns. Didn't exist. And all of a sudden now that's kind of the what we've adopted. Where did it come from? It came from China. So I don't know what other evidence you need that these rules and policies. Go look at the UN Human Rights organization. Who's on the UN Human Rights Organization? It's not people that actually, or countries that actually believe in human rights. So when I say they're destroying it, they're basically destroying the rules and the principles and the values that support and underpin our way of life. And they're doing it and not through force. We're just basically embracing it and adopting it because they have control of the narrative, and they basically work very closely with our political system, with our corporations, with our financial institutions, with our academic institutions, to slowly change the narrative in their favor. I mean, when I was the defense attaché in Beijing, I went to the Chinese Communist Party headquarters, and that's where they informed me that they were having meetings with the Democratic Party and the Republican Party there in the Chinese Communist Party headquarters. What reason would a Democratic Party and the Republican Party have to have political meetings with the Chinese Communist Party? I mean, we have created this system that says China is good, the Chinese Communist Party is good, and therefore we should bring it into nearly everything. And they see that as an opportunity to change the rules in their favor. And they've said that like blatantly. It's not like it's a secret. They say, we don't like your rules. We think your rules favor you. We want the rules to favor us, meaning we want the rules to favor an authoritarian system because that's what we believe is the best for society.
Oh, sure. I definitely think that they are interested in their own political system and not ours. But it seems like you're saying that, for example, the COVID lockdowns were done only for the reason of the Chinese Communist Party was doing it, and the Chinese Communist Party has some kind of influence over us. Therefore, they were able to convince America to do a policy with no rational justification or something. But that doesn't seem to be the case to me. It seems like for like an airborne virus spread by
well, where were lockdowns first initiated?
China.
In Wuhan.
Yeah.
In Wuhan. Okay.
But
were lockdowns then adopted worldwide?
Sure. Well, mostly.
Okay. So I mean, I don't know why you're disagreeing.
Well, for example,
lockdowns did not exist in pandemic protocols prior. They didn't exist. And in fact, the WHO initially came out and said, "Oh, lockdowns, that's not anything we ever tried." And then in a couple of weeks, they said, "Oh, lockdowns have stopped the virus in its tracks in China." And all of a sudden, oh, everybody needs to do lockdowns. It was all bullshit. It was all bullshit because there was no data coming out of China at all about how many sicknesses they had, how many deaths they had. So I mean, I don't know. So are you saying that lockdowns were evidence based? Based on randomized studies that said we should embrace lockdowns? I mean, is that what you're saying?
Sort of, yeah, because lockdowns have been used in the past. So do you think lockdowns have not been used in the past to slow the spread of disease? Like, because lockdowns don't originate in China, in Wuhan. It's not the first time it's ever happened in the history of humanity.
If the CDC believed that lockdowns were effective, why wasn't it part of the pandemic protocol prior to Wuhan? Why would basically the protocol was voluntary quarantine of the vulnerable. That's what the protocol was.
I'm not sure what you're asking. So why didn't America have specifically a lockdown protocol in place in case of a worldwide pandemic? Because we hadn't been exposed to one. So anything that we haven't happened
Come
yet,
on now. That's not true.
What?
That is not true. We had been exposed to pandemics, and the CDC had procedures in place for them. And they called for voluntary quarantine of the vulnerable. That's what they called for. Lockdown of people in their apartments, welding them in, making kids not go to school, did not exist prior to Wuhan. I go ahead. I go and try to prove me wrong.
Well, those
I
also
welcome you.
don't exist in the CDC guidelines. I don't believe the CDC guidelines include welding people into their home. I think that's specifically a China thing. But as Bill Gates mentioned in one of his conversations prior to, like, I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago, or no, before COVID, that there is no guideline for an epidemic. It was one of the things in his big speeches, that we don't have sufficient guidelines in case of a biological epidemic, and that's
Okay,
like
all
a
right.
pretty
All
well-known
right.
thing. But I wanted to go back to the lockdowns thing. Like, it wasn't that we didn't implement lockdowns because China implemented lockdowns. That's not the reason. The reason was because it seemed like it would try to help the problem. So, like, if China implements something that's a good idea, or something that looks like a good idea, we'll probably try to copy it, just like everyone should. If anyone implements a good idea, we should try to copy it. But it's not simply the fact that China did it, was the impetus for why we did it. It was
Okay,
because it seemed like it was a good
then how did
justification.
I don't understand what your logic is. I mean, why did we think it was a good idea? Answer that.
Because lockdowns have worked in the past to slow the spread of disease.
Okay, can you
The
give me
Black Plague.
examples?
The Black Plague.
Give me examples of that we have studies, right?
The Black Plague.
Peer-reviewed studies that says that lockdowns work.
The Black Plague. So there have been about 2
You're not
dozen there
so the
there have
Black
been there
Plague
have
is
been
a
2
thing.
dozen examples of massive plagues that have ravaged humanity over time. And the best way to combat those is lockdowns. You keep people from going and meeting places. You lock down public meeting places, and it slows the spread of disease. This is a very common, well-known, obvious fact that is proven
Okay.
throughout history.
Great. So how come when you look at the spread of the pandemic in a country that adopted lockdowns, and you look at a country that didn't adopt lockdowns, like Sweden, you don't see much change in the spread of the disease? Why is that?
One, because Sweden isn't as populated, so there are
Oh,
areas they
come
don't
on.
have some
Look,
things like New York.
I really don't want to continue this, because I think your whole premise is ridiculous. And there's no
Okay.
scientific basis for your argument. So,
Well, there
look,
is. There's been proven. So, one, I'd like a chance to answer your question. Why do some countries who don't initiate lockdowns have slower spreads than countries that do initiate lockdowns? It's because there are different factors in that country of how people integrate and live together. So, one, people who have more poverty have less access to the ability to keep themselves safe. And so in poor areas, there's more spread. Wait, please don't interrupt. Please don't interrupt. Let me finish the
Africa should
question.
have been a lot affected by coronavirus, a lot worse than everybody else, but they weren't.
They were.
You don't have anything that data wise that backs you up.
I
You're just
do.
talking.
No, this is factually proven. We do
Okay,
have the data to prove this.
okay.
But
Show
I'd
them
like
your
to
screen.
finish the answer first. So why do some countries don't have lockdowns affected less than countries that do have lockdowns? Because of the social factors of the country, because the country is more affected by different kinds of people, because the country is more exposed to people traveling in there from countries that do have it. There's lots of reasons, socially, economically, geographically, that do affect things. That doesn't mean that just because they affect lockdowns, that is going to necessitate that they're going to be affected less than other countries. We know for a fact that countries who did affect lockdowns, like Australia, were essentially unaffected, were countries who instituted a lockdown, but essentially half of the country ignored it, like America, because they're morons, were significantly affected by it. So yes, lockdowns have been proven to work. There is absolute evidence that shows they do work throughout history, not just from this virus, for a fact, which is why the doctors suggested them, because we know they work. Well, that was brief. Yeah, he left. Thank you for the super chat. I don't think he's going to get a chance to answer. I suggest we open the borders to as many of our best scientists from overseas. Oh yeah, so like Tim West's, I would agree. I think that we should open our borders to like what's it called? Merit-based immigration. Get all the big scientists in, for sure. Since that was a brief one, I guess I'll go to Discord or something. Hey guys, wow. So do you guys mind if I stream this? One of my speakers bowed out and got nothing to do, so. All right. Any objections? Going once, going twice. My YouTube channel, just this conversation, you guys potentially. All right. There we go. So if anybody wants to chat, please join the Discord. I'll put a link in the thing. Join the Discord. Support. No, not support. Discord.
Yeah, as long as you're in here, you guys can go order a tarot reading from our good friend Moonstone because she just threw it in my chat for no reason. So
that works.
Yeah, so I love getting scammed. It's my favorite thing.
So yeah, I just had
it's not a scam.
I just had a U.S. general, ex-U.S. retired U.S. general on. He was talking about COVID lockdowns and how they were unscientific or something, and that we only implemented them because China implemented them. And I told him, no, lockdowns have been proven to work in the past for many different pandemics. They're not first done in Wuhan. That's not the first they've ever been done. They've been done many times in the past, and they do work. And then he left. He rage quitted.
I mean, that's what they say.
So 10 minutes, maybe.
Even if it's really strange because I've heard people imply that the lockdowns didn't work specifically for COVID, and for some reason that should have been known in advance. Even if it turns out that's true, because they worked in the past, it still would have been worth trying. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, so he said that there's no scientific basis because there's no peer-reviewed studies. I was like, actually, yes, there are. We do have many examples of like the Black Plague and other diseases in the past where lockdowns did, in fact, slow the spread of the disease. So whether or not we knew it specifically would work for COVID is irrelevant. There was past data that showed we should invest lockdowns. And so copying China in this case was a good idea. We didn't just do it because China did it. It's not like China does something. We're like, hey, you know what? We should just copy China because China did it. That's not the justification.
With as susceptible as China is to, infectious disease, I don't think it is a bad idea to copy them, though, to be fair.
So I would actually be shocked. I would have to look it up, but I'm pretty sure the origin of this idea would be Hippocrates, or even sooner. Like just the fact that the ancients would have been able to notice that your proximity to a diseased person, and then you become sick. Like I would be curious when that first observation was made.
Yeah, probably before that. I think like this is something that tribal people noticed. They would put sick people into quarantine tents. So it's like origin of humanity kind of a thing.
I'm not sure how related it is, but like what was called leprosy, in the Bible, which may not have actually been leprosy, but it was some kind of contagious disease. They kicked people out of the city for having leprosy, so that nobody else would get it.
And that's the way you said that was kind of funny, because I think they would probably be like, whatever leprosy was, they probably would have had the right to name whatever that was leprosy. And what we call it today is probably not what that was. But that was probably the actual leprosy, and what we call it today is probably not the real leprosy.
Yeah.
Hey, TJump, what's your opinion on the lab leak theory? I know things are changing all the time, and more people are accepting of it. Do you think it's that it might be a lab leak due to funding through the COVID? I'm sorry, through the coronavirus weapons lab in China?
Well, obviously anything's possible, but based on the evidence I've seen, it seems unlikely that it's a lab leak. It seems unlikely that it's a man-made virus. It's possible, but as far as I know, only 2 of the 7 divisions of American government that have looked into it have concluded that it's a lab leak. One only tentatively, one said it was possibly likely,
Yeah,
but the others all
the
say
FBI
no.
too.
The FBI is like a
Right,
maybe.
A
And
maybe,
so,
right. None of them are hard
Yep.
guesses.
and so it's possible, but it seems like most likely the case probably not.
Thing is, like, people seem to be looking at it as a dichotomy of either it's a man-made virus that escaped or it's a wild virus. But it's also possible it could have been a wild virus that then escaped. So that,
What?
it could have
How-
gone through a lab but not have been made in a lab.
That I don't know what that means exactly. Like, because
So people are saying that like the conspiracy theory type thing was that like China created this virus in the lab, right?
Yeah.
They manipulated the DNA of a wild virus, made this super virus, and released it.
Yeah, but so
either
you're saying,
intentionally
you're
or
saying
unintentionally.
It started outside of a lab, got that part, and then it went into a lab. Okay, seems unlikely, because if there's a lab that's controlled by like very good practices to keep out viruses, the virus getting in would be hard.
Well, no,
okay,
the lab was. They would have intentionally brought it into the lab. The lab was studying these viruses.
Right, and so then what? So it goes into the lab, and then what?
I mean, it's possible that there could have been a breach in the containment protocol, and it could have gotten out. Well, I'm not saying this is what happened. I'm just saying that is another possibility.
Right.
I know. So,
but I'm missing.
I know only
that would still either be the virus started in the lab because they mutated it. Because obviously there are SARS viruses that are not COVID, and those viruses are obviously being studied in the lab. And so either they made COVID-19 in a lab, or it started outside of a lab and then it went into a lab. But they wouldn't have then, if they changed it to a new virus, then it would just be the lab leak thing. There wouldn't be it's not like a third option. And so the 2 options are either the COVID-19 variant started in the lab or it started in the wild, and those are kind of the only 2 options. I didn't really understand how your hypothesis was a third option.
I saw that there was, and there could be more, but I saw that there was 2 research studies from virologists that sequenced the RNA of the COVID virus and concluded that it didn't appear to have been like made, didn't appear to have been augmented in the lab. And then and a lot of people point to and it is, if you think about it at first glance, it seems unusual that the virus would start exactly where there was a research laboratory, but actually it's the other way around, because it's the same place where SARS started. That's why there's a COVID research laboratory there in the first place. So there's sort of a
yes, because other SARS
evidence is okay.
Yeah, because other SARS viruses started in that location, it's highly likely that new SARS variants would also start in that location, independent of the research station. So the research station was there as a precaution in order to study the variations that happen in that location. And so the fact that a new virus would pop up there isn't actually that surprising.
What do you think of the circumstantial evidence, though, T-Jump? I'm not saying that it happened, but the gain of function testing and the, Fauci admits that, there was American money sent to NIH for gain of function testing on how to gain the function of making the cleavage site of the COVID virus, not the original COVID, but the coronavirus, the cleavage site, to add a factor where it makes it more viral and spreads more easily. And there's actually proof that America wanted to research that to make a virus more biologically weaponized. And the fact that they did provide funding for that research in China, does that would that move you at all?
No, of course we're researching that. That's obvious. We definitely are researching that. That doesn't actually mean it happened to cause the virus, though. So those are 2 completely different things.
In 2022, a preprint study from, I found this really interesting. A preprint study from Boston University they said that they were able to do theoretical gain of function research, gain of function modulation of the COVID-19 virus, which made it kill 80% in theory of people infected with it. That would be right. The worst possible pandemic you probably ever come up with would be end of humanity level stuff, right? But this was
like if it
October
killed,
of 2022. So
it depends how long it would take to kill them. So, because if
That's
you
true,
don't
yeah.
want it to kill everyone, you want it to kill a small number of people and just infect most other people. So you only want it to kill about 30 to 40% max, maybe less.
If you could delay it, if you could get it to delay the severe side effects, but I understand that that's very hard to do and not understood yet. But anyway, so in theory though, this was really quick. This was less than a year post discovery of the actual COVID and catalog of the COVID-19 virus. So like, if Boston University could do it that quickly and make a virus that efficient, if this was a gain of function research virus, which came out, why was it so weak by comparison? That would be my like kind of circumstantial review of like, if it was a gain of function weaponized version of COVID, shouldn't it have been far worse? Since it seems
I don't think that's
relatively easy to have made it.
Like unless
No?
you're saying it was China was deliberately trying to make one of these as viral as possible. Well, that's unlikely. So if there was a lab leak, it wouldn't have necessarily been for one that was like specifically designed to be as deadly as possible. They could have been researching something else. There's probably lots of variations. So the variation that got out wouldn't necessarily be the deadliest version possible. Even they probably wouldn't even try to make the deadliest version possible. So that I don't think that's a great argument, because like if they were researching anything, it probably wouldn't be to make it the deadliest possible. And even if they were, it could have just been any of the other variations that got out. So that wouldn't be the best argument.
Fair enough. Yeah. Okay. You're right. That was my first thought anyway. But I wouldn't. Specimen capture means that in theory, the same wild coronavirus could exist in zoonotic specimens and in a lab simultaneously.
Well, yeah. So like if we captured one that was in the wild, but then it would just be, it came from the wild.
Yeah. Then origin is technically wild specimen, but patient 0 could be from a lab leak. Although I guess at that point it really doesn't matter.
Yeah,
I think even if it was a lab leak, China bears a brunt of responsibility for their response as well.
What do you mean? What would there be the responsibility that China would have for that?
A more transparent response than they first had. For the first couple of months of the initial leak in China, they were hushing it, as we probably would as well. But there could have been mitigating factors they could have done early.
Oh yeah, I would agree there. Like them hiding the fact that it happened is definitely a big problem that they probably should not have done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think after.
I
don't think after, when they actually did.
You agree that
they didn't anything necessarily wrong there. They were overly like welding people into their home is a problem, but they were attempting to slow it down in like a potentially rational.
The degree that anyone can be blamed for like what happened when it reached America and spread in the U.S. I mean, you've got to lay that squarely on Donald Trump's shoulders, almost entirely. Like the death toll is his fault.
I don't think so. Like even if Donald Trump had done something or like actually implemented a lockdown or whatever, I don't think many Republicans would have listened. I still think a large portion of them would have just like, nope, not going to happen. Because I mean, it wasn't just the biggest spreaders weren't like Republican cities. It was colleges. Like even in liberal cities, like college students just did not care. Like, nah, get out of here.
Why do you think it got so politicized, T-Jump? Like, is it like a libertarian right-wing thing? Like, you can't tell me what to do kind of thing? Or was it something else?
What was the question?
I don't understand, like, how the whole process of, the lockdowns and COVID and vaccines got politicized so hard. And, it just boggles my mind. Like, you would think that would be an event that, like, galvanized America to be, like 9/11 to have coalescence with each other. But it seemed that for some reason the whole issue got politicized. Do you think it's like a libertarian leaning?
No, it wasn't libertarian anything. It was because the Democrats supported it. Because the Democrats support it and the Republicans hate the Democrats, they're going to go against anything. And so if they can find any ideological reason that opposes why the Democrats or what the Democrats are doing, they're going to do it. They're going to latch onto it and say, ha, you guys are evil. Look what you're doing. You're against our values. And so that's the primary reason, because we're already so polarized. And this became a mainstay of the Democratic Party. The Republican Party took it onto themselves in order to use it as a moral grounding point to fight against the system of the Democratic Party. So that's the reason that it became
difficult
so
because, like, Democrats could people in political power, especially governors of Democratic states, could have been passive, even while actively promoting it by saying, like, listen to what your doctor says and leave it at that. But instead, they were trying to protect their states by saying, stay at home, get your shot, which is right. That's the right thing to do. But I think Republicans latched onto it immediately, like you said, immediately as a political issue because the Democrats were saying it on political.
It's also because Trump has such a fragile ego that he would deny reality. Like with him drawing the path of the hurricane with a Sharpie just so that he wouldn't have been shown to misspeak. So I think Trump at first thought that it would just go away. It wasn't going to be a big deal like a lot of the other, pandemic scares we've had. So, in order to not have it hurt him politically, he thought that at first he could just downplay it. And then when it didn't go away, then you have to start, going into, claiming it to be a hoax and all that. And
I don't think so. I think there's actually recorded evidence where Trump knew how bad it was, but still denied it on TV. So I think that the evidence shows he was shown that it was bad and dangerous, but even so, he still rejected that and downplayed it publicly.
Peter Navarro, his cabinet member, told him about it. Specifically said how dangerous it was, and he said, "Nope, I don't care."
Well, that's the thing. It's just because Trump was shown something doesn't mean that he actually understood it.
Well, he admitted to Bob Woodward. This is one of the big revelations from the Bob Woodward takes, is he knew it was deadlier than the flu, months before he was publicly lying that it was about the same. So.
Okay, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, I would have to double check the dates. I think it was January he admitted to Woodward, and March he was publicly tweeting about it. But you can check the dates yourself. I just know I heard him on tape. So.
Hey, TJam, along the China lines, what do you think? Do you think that China is going to be the top hegemony in the world, or do you think that America's going to hold on to it? What are your views on China's rise or fall in the future?
China's actually struggling in a lot of things. I don't think China's doing as successful. The biggest concerns are the economic ones, because they can release. They subsidize different products. So there's the Temu thing or whatever, the new shopping center that got a Super Bowl commercial, and they sell things for a third the price they do in America, which I think I'm happy about. I like this. I think that's great. But it's because the government subsidized all the products and whatever. Yeah. Which means that our stuff really can't compete, but it will hopefully counteract the overly inflated prices of everything in America, which is dumb.
Right.
But that would be the only way they could actually significantly have a chance at actually taking over, would be economically, in that sense. But I don't think they will. I think that they struggle a lot on many things.
Are you familiar with Peter Zeihan at all?
Yes, very familiar.
Okay. What do you think is your views of deglobalization, and China's demographic issues? Do you think that demographically, I know China demographically, just like Korea and Japan, they're not going to have a workforce in another 10 years, or
that is just not relevant in so many ways. the biggest concern is AI right now. Once AI takes over, we all
Yeah.
lose, and whoever gets
Yeah.
AI wins. And so this idea that China,
Right.
because the projections for this economic collapse and workforce collapse, that's way too soon. Like they're going to be fine for a long, long time. They're going to be fine. AI is going to happen before any of the potential disasters of economic collapse happen because of a workforce collapse, and AI is going to do everything for us. So the idea that China is going to lose its workforce, like, no, they have billions of people. They're going to be fine. They're just going to have to subsidize different kinds of job and labor market education, which is what's going to happen. And they're just going to get their billions of people to fill the jobs because they have plenty of people. Like, there's no shortage of people in China.
What do you think about the Silicon Wars, though? Do you think that China will still be able to succeed with the restrictions with the GPUs? NVIDIA and AMD aren't allowed to sell China any of their proprietary cards for AI. Do you think they'll be able to catch up, or?
No, but I mean, they're going to try to steal it just like they do everything. They're just gonna try to, so I mean, possibly, I guess, but I mean, China's policies make it bad, and it's struggling and using underhanded policies in order to try and maintain its position. I don't think it's going to be able to take the lead with that strategy. It has to do its own innovation somehow, and until it gets its ability to make things that high quality on its own consistently, then it's never going to be able to innovate and get ahead. It's always going to be contingent on using the resources of other countries that do all the innovation themselves. And so I'm not afraid of China's strategy in that sense. That's not really a big issue. Again, I think the biggest concern is their economic control, like the China Belt and Road Initiative, using their debt policies in order to take advantage of airports or whatever in other countries, specifically in Africa. Being able to be expansionist in an economic sense is something that is uniquely mostly what China is doing, and they're doing it very well. And they have an advantage in that because it's clearly immoral and other countries won't do it. And because of that, they're able to get a foothold in countries that other countries will not get a foothold in because of its immoral practices. And that is the concern. Like the economic policies of the Temu and subsidizing prices of different things. That is the only real concern I think I have with China and potentially getting world domination.
Right. Like, especially with Africa too, they're Belt and a road initiative. Africa has so many of the raw materials that we need to create, batteries and robotics and construction, whatever. It's just I fear that I don't know if America is paying attention or
well, we
I'm
definitely
sure they're
are.
counteracting
We're
it.
really paying attention to it. The question is what is the correct political response? Should we match it or whatever and try to do something similar? And using debt traps to take advantage of developing countries is definitely not something America is for. And so it's probably not something we're going to try to do. And we can't really apply sanctions to Africa for trying to help themselves by building power plants and things. Obviously that would be bad. So the correct policy is really unknown. We do know it's not as successful as they had hoped for. They do a bunch of cheap labor and stuff that doesn't work, and their infrastructure fails, and so it's not as successful as they were hoping it to be. So it's not as big of a concern, but if China did it right, it could be a huge concern that they're just not doing it right. So that's why we're not as worried about it yet.
I see. What are your thoughts on Taiwan being the next Ukraine? Do you think it's going to happen? Do you think it's not going to happen? Or
would China start with Taiwan? Probably not. I think China has some more interesting options. Obviously, Hong Kong would have been the first, which they did already. So Hong Kong was already taken.
Yeah, no, it's scary because I think if Taiwan gets invaded, I think the world's economy, the outsource of trade is just gonna come to a halt. And
wait, why?
Financially speaking, it's just gonna blow up the world.
You know the big difference between Taiwan and Ukraine, right? When it comes to this.
Taiwan has an island. I'm just joking.
Well, no. The difference is that we had no defense. We didn't have any defense pacts with Ukraine, whereas with Taiwan we do. So if they're invaded, like we have a treaty that's just like we're supposed to get involved.
Right.
Hold on. Can you
I'm
clarify?
Yeah.
Just real quick for my sake, can you clarify to what you're pointing? Because I thought our position on Taiwan was one of strategic ambiguity. So specifically, there is nothing saying what we would do.
I think it's just Biden's like backwards talk of we'll respond kind of thing. It's not really. It is ambiguous, pretty much. I don't think there is a treaty to respond to attack though.
If I've been given misinformation, because I heard that we had a defense agreement with Taiwan.
Even for me, well, I don't know.
Well, we do have a defense agreement with them where we sell them weapons and things, but I don't think we have an agreement where we're specifically going to send military aid. Are they a part of NATO?
No, but NATO is North Atlantic Treaty Organization, so that's only North America and Europe. Like Japan isn't part of NATO, but we would definitely.
I know Biden has said it.
Okay, the Sino-American,
but I'm not sure if there's an actual treaty though.
The Sino-American Mutual Defense Treaty.
But that's with China though.
No, that's the Republic of China, which is Taiwan.
Oh,
yeah, I'm gonna have to look at that.
But is that to specifically defend them in case of invasion, or just selling them weapons?
I don't know. Well, no, this says we have a mutual defense treaty with them.
Though. It looks like it got dissolved in 1980, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
I don't think there's anything after that. Either way, I think they would help, but I don't know.
Hey, T-Joe, just backing up a couple steps. You mentioned this conversation you were having with this general. I don't know. Did you happen to press him on like what would he do if soldiers under his command fell under a biological attack? Like if proximity is not a worrying factor, like what would his orders be? Like, did you press him on this?
I didn't get a chance to. He left after like 5 minutes of me responding to that one point. But it's a great question. I definitely wish I had a chance to ask him. So thank you for bringing up such a great question.
Yeah, it just seems like I would be very worried. It wouldn't even need to be biological. It could be just a proximity-based radioactive or chemical attack.
Exactly, yeah. It just seems that isolation is a basic response to an antigen. I don't know why he's so stuck up about it.
Because he's Republican.
I think like politically, maybe he's just leaning that way. In my suspicion.
Yep.
Like he just is so anti-lockdown.
That is the impression I got as well.
He seemed to be implying some sort of like it's like he almost didn't really want to come out and say exactly how China doing the lockdowns caused us to also do lockdowns.
Yep.
Like he never really explained what was the causal mechanism of that. Were they like?
Well, he did. That part he went through. He was talking about how he thinks that China's implementation of information warfare to be able to manipulate people into doing things, they used that information in order to try to encourage other countries to take policies that were undemocratic, such as lockdowns.
Oh, I missed that part. That's what he was suggesting?
Yep.
Wow. Okay. That seems kind of
conspiracy theory. Conspiracy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know about that. Like I could see China manipulation on other things, but not really that. I don't know.
Yeah, it seemed like a combination of his bias against information and Silicon Valley, and combining that with his bias against China to create a combination of two really negative things and just tying them together, kind of like how Christians do when they say, "Oh, look, someone has demon horns. They must be influenced by the devil." Ooh.
Right. Right. I see. Okay. Yeah, that makes more sense then. I don't even know the general's basic stance on China. Like, was he? Do you know TJump? Like, what was his? I guess his worldview on China. Like, is he? I guess we couldn't find out.
Well, I'm pretty sure he's against China. Like he doesn't like China. That was the impression. Because if China is doing undemocratic things and he's against lockdowns, it seemed like he was very much anti-China, which
Yeah.
Anybody else got anything going on to talk about? Need more theists come in and start yelling about God or something.
Yeah, I have one question.
God.
Have you already publicly?
One sec. Who's the
Oh,
person
yeah,
who had
go
the
ahead.
question? The other guy talking?
I did have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, on your morality, specifically on the will part, you said that you choosing something, being in slavery to a god or something, would be voluntary imposition on your will.
Wait, what?
Even if you later then decide you don't want to.
Say that again.
Well, you said you can choose to be in slavery. That's an option.
Yeah.
And even if
you can
yeah, I know.
on your own will.
So yeah, if you choose to be in slavery and you choose to eliminate your ability to end that slavery, then that's your voluntary position. And whether the answer of whether or not a will at time t is the same as a will at time t plus 1, if it is, then it's the case that you can voluntarily put yourself in slavery indefinitely if you so choose. But that's up to you. Like if your body, your mind chooses to do that, it's your choice if you want to.
Yeah, that was basically my question, because I mean, you just assume that the will at 10t and t1 and t2 are just the same, but they could not be.
Yeah, if they're not, then it would just not be the case that you would be bound by that. If it's factually the case that they are different wills, then the will too wouldn't be bound by it. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the metaphysics of mind, but if it's the case that time t will time t and will at time t plus 1 are different wills, then obviously the different will wouldn't be under the rules of the time t plus 0. If it is the case that they are the same will, then it would.
So you had then like in every time you would have like infinite wills, or
if that's how wills work in the universe, yeah, I don't think it is. I think they're the same. But if it's the case that wills change over time and that's just the way it works in the universe, then yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, their views, like the serivce community is not, there's not a consensus on this, and some views are that your will is, or your personal identity is bound to your biological form, but in your best possible world, you could transcend, I guess, or from your biological.
Well, it'd just be a question of reality. In reality, is it the case that wills change over time, or do they have some kind of persistent identity? And the factual answer there would depend on how we would treat it in my best of all possible worlds. And we could have both, I guess, and just have which one do you want or something. Just pick which will you would like.
I mean, it would have huge implications, because then you couldn't. If it was in fact the case that the next time in t, like the next second, you are somewhere, the next minute you're something different, someone different, and you can't will a lot of things we now assume that would be okay. under your
Yep.
model.
So if you chose to instantiate that kind of existence, it would be very weird, but it is your choice.
Thanks.
Yep.
But wait a minute. Wouldn't that kind of be a paradox? Because if you, once that existence is instantiated, you're no longer the same will that chose to instantiate it.
Yeah. That wouldn't be a paradox, because then that will could then choose to do something different. Because the best possible world's requirement for a will is that each will is given its own universe. They can do whatever they want with that universe. And so if a new will is created and it has its own universe, it can do whatever it wants with its universe, that would be consistent with the best of all possible worlds. And so if you go from time t to time t plus 1 and you're now a new person, well, you still have your own universe that was given to the person before that.
But that's not you anymore.
Well, it's your universe. So if you cease to exist, if person at time t equals 0 ceases to exist and time t equals t plus 1 begins to exist, and the ownership of the universe transfers from one to the other, then all of the requirements in the best of all possible worlds is still met. You still have a freely existing entity at each time that has their own universe, and they can do whatever they want with that universe.
Universe would change with the will.
Yeah, the new will could then change it however they wanted to by those criteria.
Oh, okay. All right, that makes sense then.
TJump, do you know who Ram the Badfire is?
Nope.
Because it would, if you talk to him, it would make a really good dumpster fire and a lot of money for you.
Send him an email. See if you can get him on.
I mean, I don't know if he does it anymore, but he was active.
Send him an email.
A year ago.
You can also post his name in. There's a section on Discord of suggested speakers. Just post a name there.
All right.
What kind of dumpster fire does he usually argue?
Well, he's for sure not like he would probably have a lot of problems with moral naturalism and these kind of positions.
Hey, TJump, have you seen Everything All at Once? Everything
Nope,
Everywhere.
I've not seen it yet.
I think something you might enjoy. Yeah, a little bit of quantum physics. Sean Carroll actually appreciates it.
See my question? Am I audible?
Are you edible? Well, I mean, we can find out.
Yeah. I have a question for you, just a general question about your philosophy.
Yeah.
What's your disposition towards the structure that goes like, I believe in this because it makes me feel good and I like it?
Perfectly fine.
Okay.
Yeah, it was better to go with the edible joke there than the Oedipal joke.
TJ, do you have a upcoming debate with Aaron Ra on religion coming up?
Yep.
What is your position on
religion has caused
I just saw the
more
headline.
good than harm.
Ah, okay. I see. How are you gonna I guess we'll find out, but are you gonna go the route of like IP inspiring philosophy's version of why religion is better, or
Oh, I should check that out. Which one is that one?
He had a multiple debates. I think one with Matt Dillahunty. Inspiring philosophies. Why religion is better than atheism. I think it was. Let me look it up.
Yeah, please, and send it DM me because I would interested in check that out. My general argument is going to be that religion has absolutely harmed hundreds of millions of people's lives, but it's helped billions of people's lives.
As like a needed, like evolutionary kind of like, kind of like Jordan Peterson's kind of like claim for religion, the importance of religion, not really the religion itself, but
yeah. So
what religion does.
Yeah, because obviously I don't believe religion is true, but religion has provided lots of social benefits that were very helpful for lots of people, and it helped societies to have cohesive structures that help them to act better and inspired billions of people to do good things. So it's obviously inspired millions of people to do bad things, but just like it has inspired them to do bad things, it's also inspired people to do good things. There's obviously like, pastors, the pastors who ask for money and they clearly are bad, but there for each pastor that's like a prosperity gospel guy, there's thousands of pastors who are like genuinely trying to help people in their society. And so there's the net impact has been mostly positive.
Do you think Aaron's counter is probably going to be, believing in false things leads to false
that's going to be
beliefs
one of
in
them.
the future kind of thing?
Yeah, that's going to be one of his beliefs for sure.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm kind of on your side on this one. I think for certain people, religion is helpful. For certain people, not. But it is harmful. I see like the harm in it, but
yeah,
I think for
I
society,
don't know if you'll get there, but there's some really interesting research on the benefits of pastoral care.
Benefits of pastoral care? What do you mean?
Yeah, so people who are terminally ill or suffering in hospital, the benefits of having like a representative of their religious faith there to help them through healing.
I don't know if that would work as an argument, because if the idea is that does religion cause more harm than good, then the creation of the solution or the problem is the fact that you have a particular religion, and the solution is, of course, the religion. And so that would be one of the, I don't know if that would count as actually a benefit.
Religious people stay married longer on average? I don't know.
I don't know if that's a good thing either. That may not, I don't even know if that's even a good thing.
Yeah, it could be a bad thing.
I wonder if he's going to use, the anachronistic part of religion against women as well, which, it does happen, but I don't know.
I feel like the temporal argument is going to be hard because historically not just people, but every single institution has been historically religious once we have records from. Right? It's only very recently that we have a secular comparison.
Well, why does that matter?
Well, because like you could try to point and say like, look at what like the priesthood imposed on ancient Israelites or whatever, these barbaric laws, but you don't have a secular what do you call it, contemporary secular society to compare it to see how they would act if they didn't have a religious belief, which was
the question isn't
fundamental to their.
Is a secular thing better than religion? The idea is, has religion caused more harm than good? That's the only question. So it's not really a comparison thing here, where we're trying to decide would it be better than a non-religious society. It's just has it caused more harm than good? So even if they're like, I would grant that like secular societies would be better, but the point is that was it good? So like if you say a spear or something, like a spear is a tool that is used that does both harm and good. It's harmed millions of people, but it's also helped them by hunting and et cetera, et cetera. And so if we ask, well, has spears done more harm than good? We're not asking, well, are there better weapons? Like, what would we do in a society without spears? Like, who cares? The point is that what has the spear itself produced more harm than good? Not what would we do without spears?
Hmm. It's just a hard thing to measure. I wonder what kind of data Iron Ra is going to present for the harm argument. Because there's no, I mean, it's not like he's been he's been very vocal that his position is that religion is generally harmful. So
Yeah. I think his position is, I think he says he's an anti-theist instead of an atheist.
Agnosticism or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. I sent you the link, TjumpsChair.
Thanks.
It was that old non sequitur debate. Hey, Jeff, you like Harry Potter? Are you playing Hogwarts at all?
I did. I got bored with it.
Yeah, me too. I couldn't even finish it.
Me neither. It was
Repetitive.
well, it's not that it was repetitive. Like, the whole point of Harry Potter is the school. The school is the point. Like, the classes is the point. And they did nothing for the classes. The classes was a cutscene, and then you wave a wand. It was dumb. Like, and the spells, the intricacy of the spells should have been the focus of the game. Like, you should have just been given just classes and the library and have hundreds of spells listed that you can learn, and then tell you nothing else. Nothing else about the
Oh,
world.
I
There
like
should
that.
be no storyline, no like overarching garbage. It should just be, here are the classes. The classes will teach you 1 or 2 spells per class. And here's the library. You can go explore, and you can just try hundreds of combinations of potions and things. And you just experiment with that stuff in the world to find the storyline. That would have been the correct way to do Harry Potter.
Oh, I had to agree with you on that. That would have been amazing. And it was way too easy at a certain point too. You just become overpowered, and it's not even fun, challenging.
But yeah, I think it was more just I also want to pastoral care. Just gonna put that in the DM with you just so I remember it for later. I think it was more just a cash grab, try to use people's nostalgia points to get money rather than actually trying to make a good Harry Potter game.
Yeah. Jump, would you debate? I see a lot of other debaters that are going down the red pill route for the male chauvinism kind of thing. Have you? Has anybody come up with asking you to debate against that?
Not really.
No. Is that interesting or not really for you?
I don't think so. I think it's boring.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, it's a good idea to gain views and stuff. Sure. I mean,
Yeah.
like, if I could get on a stream with Destiny on No Jumper or something, like, yeah, for sure, I'll do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you would get more female viewers definitely if you start doing that though.
Yeah, boring relationship stuff. Great.
All right, T-Jump, thanks for everything, man. I gotta come back to work, but good chatting with you, man. Thanks for being open.
Yep. See you later.
Take care, bro. Bye, everybody.
Hey, T-Jump, I have a question about your moral system and perhaps just the justifiability of an action outside of the moral system. So you've talked many times in many debates and even in here about an action you would be justified in taking that is not the moral action. Have you tried to categorize like however many other like systems there could be, like safety or any other kind of belief you might have that might justify a non-moral decision?
Could you say that again?
Yeah, sure. So you've talked about like anything that violates someone's will is a immoral action, but you've talked about a justifiable immoral action. I'm
Yep.
wondering if you have a set of things conceptually that could justify a non-moral action. And I'm wondering if that's a finite list, you think?
Justify a thing that is a non-moral action. So a justified immoral action is any action that is immoral but prevents a greater immorality. So there's infinitely many of those.
Oh, okay. So you're not appealing to something like the rational or pragmatic or other words that people might use to justify action.
Well, I mean, both of those words would be also applicable. So like rationally, killing one saves 5, kill one. That's the rationally immoral thing to do because it's like less immoral than the other option. So it's justified to kill 1 to save 5 because you're doing less harm. They're all the same words, I guess.
Gotcha.
Anybody else got anything to talk about?
Oh yeah. So earlier we were talking about China and sort of the future of relationships with China in the future technology. The way I generally think about this is there are 3 constraints for the future, for the foreseeable future. There's an energy constraint, so cold fusion, right? Who gets there first? There are material limitations, so who has access to what resources at
Cold
what time?
fusion?
Yes, I did.
I don't think so.
You don't think that whoever discovers cold fusion first will have a major advantage?
I don't think there's going to be cold fusion. I think physically it's
Oh, interesting.
like not possible for the most part. But I mean, I think fusion, whoever gets fusion first will have a huge advantage, sure. But I think AI is the biggest one. But I don't think cold fusion is going to happen. I'm not for a long time if it doesn't violate the laws of thermodynamics.
Right. So energy. So maybe I shouldn't have said cold, but just fusion reactors where you get more energy out than you put in, and then artificial intelligence, and then just material conditions. So those 3 things. Would you agree with that conceptual framework?
Can you say those 3 things again?
Material conditions. So who has access to what elements of the periodic table? Energy. So what your reactors can put out, and then intelligence.
Sure. Seems like it.
It just seems like if you think about it that way, it just seems like the United States just has a formidable advantage in each of those areas, at least today. So for the foreseeable future, it seems likely we will.
Yeah. So Super Squid Hunk, yes, I know that I can't stream my voice and stuff to Twitch as well. I don't know how to stream both yet. It doesn't do that. It doesn't let me. I wanted to message Twitch and ask them if there's a way to stream from two different sources, because I'm streaming from my video game, the gameplay footage, and I'm streaming this to YouTube, so it's completely separate. I don't know how to fix that. Put that on my to-do list. So my original thoughts on your 3 category thing is that they're super vague, too general. Like, obviously, it's like just whoever has control of the periodic table is probably going to win, or whoever has control of energy is probably going to win. And intelligence is kind of just a mediation between those things. Twitch. There. Was that, you said there were multiple IP debates, foreign philosophy debates on the religion topic? I'll put that there. Yes, Super Squid Hunk. I'm playing the game on console, and then I'm streaming directly from my console to Twitch. Well, no, I mean, I can already do multi-streaming. That part's easy. What I want to do is I want to stream audio from one source and video from a different source, and to get Twitch to accept those, because I want to stream my video game from my PlayStation and then my audio from my Restream. I don't want to have to combine them online and then stream them together. I need a new computer for that. And I have 2 computers. I have 2 computers to do it. I don't want to buy another computer because I don't have that much money. I'm saving up for an apartment building. I need an apartment building for my church. Can I explain the multiverse in relation to the Big Bang? Well, the multiverse is just a medium of a substance like a quantum field or a string theory that produces universes. So universes are space-time fields, and there's a different field, a quantum field, that is outside of the space-time fields. And in the quantum fields, actions are happening, and those actions can produce space-time fields. And that's what the multiverse is.
Is it then multiple singularities?
I don't think singularities. I guess maybe if singularities are the origin of the Big Bang, then yes, there'll be multiple singularities. Yeah, we don't know if the Big Bang is, or if the multiverse exists or not. It's hypothetical. Upgrade.
Hey, quick question, Chief Jump. Have you encountered this? It's been cropping up in your channel. Like 2 people have motivated this Jim B. Tucker, this Virginia psychology guy who apparently interviewed children and got them.
You just cut out. Interview children. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, so you cut out and we couldn't hear what you were saying. You said interview children and then nothing after that.
It's probably my connection. I might have to go. I'm entering a rural area. But My question was, have you encountered this Jim B. Tucker reincarnation studies guy with children?
No.
Okay. Yeah, it's a Virginia doctor who apparently just interviewed a whole lot of children and got them pretend that they had past lives, but I'm going to have to go debunk this because it keeps showing up. And so I'd wondered if you had.
Nope. I've never heard of him.
All right.
Hey all, am I audible? Edible?
Yes, you are very edible.
Okay. Did you say you're playing on a PS5?
Yes.
Cool. Have you thought about or actually have you got the new VR headset they just released for it?
I have never been interested in VR.
Okay. Have you ever tried VR?
Yes.
Did you get sick?
No.
Okay. So I'm going to sound like a VR evangelist now. Any question I ask is just going to be pro VR.
I find
what don't you like about it?
The gameplay is too simple. I play extremely difficult games. So Ninja Gaiden 2, things that require extremely fast reaction times and extremely precise mechanics of combat, which have not been implemented in VR. I don't know if they can be.
Okay. It's slightly ironic given that you're an advocate for like future VR, personal VR environments for free wills.
Well, just actual universes. They're not VR, but.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you imagine a point in the future where we're able to create.
Yeah. Control physics. Yeah.
Okay. Got you. Okay. I guess I've been laboring under this idea that it was a kind of, I mean, what if a VR environment was indistinguishable from a physical universe, though?
Yeah, it would be
like
a great
Matrix
intermediator. It'd be like a first step to getting there for sure. So it'd be an improvement.
Okay, but you think there'd be limitations that would still necessitate the creation of actual physical universes after that?
Yes, because if we create the AIs, then somebody's going to be there to be able to manipulate the AI or the computer program, whatever it is.
Okay. By the way, I'm the guy who contacted you a few months ago, stating that I was making a video game loosely based on some of your moral realism ideas.
Cool.
You remember that?
I do not. How's it
Yeah, it's fine. You asking me about how you could use two mice to control swords in a video game?
Yeah, I do. I have a video game design that I would like to make a demo of, which uses two computer mice. So
yeah, I could tell. I can tell you've been kind of brewing on that one for a long time.
Well, I started it in high school, so I actually built a computer mouse, had a PCB printed, put in all the buttons and things, 3D printed the mouse body, got it built, had a demo made. So
okay, got you. And what happened? Where did it go?
It didn't go anywhere. I just haven't found a way to implement it in a big enough video game to get any traction. So what I would like to do is like put it in Skyrim in the Skyrim mod, but Skyrim's operating system can't handle two mice independently. So I just need to find a good video game to be able to do that with, and then have a programmer do it for me.
Yeah, I think that's the problem I ran into, because I think I originally reacted. I sort of said, "Yeah, that's probably pretty sound," and then I did some digging and just ran into the problem that most operating systems won't let you do that. They've just got I don't know what you'd call it, provision for kind of one mouse input, and that's it. They don't like two. But what you could do is you could make one input device which just happens to take then the signals of two mice, if you know what I mean. But it would have to be one input device. It would have. It's a hardware hurdle you've got to overcome, I would say, rather than trying to.
Well, there are multiple computer programming systems and that can do it. I don't know how to use them though.
Yeah, it's whether you'd want to get away from Windows because that's where all the easy to reach game engines are.
Well,
because then your next hurdle is.
Windows can do it. I already have one in Windows that I built myself that can do it. But what I want is to be able to implement it in an already existing video game.
Oh, like a mod.
Yep. I mean, that's in order to make it popular, you have to use something that already exists and then build off of that to get attention to it because it's so new that it's not, unless I have $1 million to build an actually really good video game, it's not going to gain much traction.
Yeah. Tell me about it. Okay, but that sort of brings us back to VR though. Have you not seen kind of games like Beat Saber and things like that where you're actually dual wielding swords?
Yep.
But that doesn't appeal to you?
Nope.
Okay.
Again, it lacks precision. It lacks the ability to make extremely precise combat systems that are very skill based. For now.
Okay.
Maybe it'll fix that later.
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, I guess I'm not seeing how much precision you're actually talking about because VR to me can be very precise. There are some especially systems with. I haven't played Ninja Gaiden, but I'm aware of what it is. It's a hack and slash, right?
Yeah.
You kind of walk around and you just attack hordes of people, or vice versa. They attack you.
Sort of.
Yeah.
So like, try it out and see if you can do it on VR.
No, definitely not. No, I agree with you there. Yeah, it's not. It's very clumsy. Most games, like I'm playing Resident Evil at the moment on the PS VR 2, and it's like a dumbed down version of the original game, and the original game wasn't exactly high octane. So I do get what you're saying. I mean, the other thing is you've got like about a kilo of plastic strapped to your body, which isn't easy either. What was I going to ask? Oh yeah, okay. So in this, so it sounds like you have done a bit of kind of futurology on your idea. You've kind of projected what you imagine the distant future would be like as we edge towards this kind of not moral utopia, hesitate to use the word, but kind of morally perfect state. Best of all possible worlds. I guess I'm wondering, like, do you think, so you were talking earlier about like wills making decisions. Do you think that the decision making facilities arise in the brain?
Yes.
Okay. But do you also think that the will, presumably because I'm guessing you're a a physicalist or whatever you call that.
Yeah.
Okay. You believe that the will also arises in the brain as well?
Yep.
Okay.
Compatibilism.
But is it?
The answer is compatibilism to the question you're leading to.
I don't know. I don't disagree. I guess what I'm saying is it logically impossible that both of those things can exist outside of a brain as well?
Sure.
A biological brain.
Sure. I mean, yeah, a computer could do it. A soul could do it. Magic leprechauns could do it. Like any medium could potentially create whatever the mechanism is that creates consciousness. Sure. Okay.
So yeah, because of course it's a mechanism, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the story that I'm writing, maybe I should get you to sign an NDA. But basically, what happens in the distant future is that humanity eventually, it through destroying categories, or I should say, overcoming limitations of the body, it reduces the species down to these little chips that basically have a small amount of neurons on them, and those chips are then kind of plugged into a matrix style AI run universe or set of universes. So it's like a big array of a server array, each running their own kind of individual universe. But I suppose, like, I guess this goes back to what I was asking. Like, after that point, after you've got a point where anything that experiences any will, this is the experiential part of being, goes into that kind of matrix scenario. Surely that's kind of an end game for this best of all possible worlds. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, it would be one of, like, if we could get all wills into a virtualized world. I mean, you're still limited by the fact that you're a physical computer chip, and so that would be something that would be, if you don't want to be a physical computer chip, how do we free you from that? Because that would be an imposition of your will that we don't have control over to stop, which would be immoral.
I see. Okay. Right, and you'd want right. Okay, I see. So even So yes, I suppose you would, even in your virtual universe, which is indistinguishable from the universe we have now, except for the fact that all wills are governed, all rules are governed by you, and you can choose to be anywhere at any point, suffer anything, or enjoy anything you want at any time.
Yep.
You would still have the knowledge that you were inside of a virtual environment.
Well, you could get rid of the knowledge. The knowledge isn't important. It's like, but if you don't want to be, I don't know, a computer chip, and you are a computer chip, that would be a violation of your will, whether you knew it or not.
Got you. Isn't there a sense of infinite regress there, though? Because we could be, or any one of us could be, in that situation right now and we wouldn't know. So we could be having our will violated right now, but just not know.
Sure. I don't understand the point.
No, I'm not saying, it's not an argument. I'm just asking you logically.
Well, like you said, it was an infinite regress or something, like.
As in, like, yeah. So let's say, for example, again, this is all very fictional, but like, let's say, for example, like right now, I was in a matrix, but I didn't know. Okay, so in order to have but I, for some way, somehow found out that I was. And I was like, okay, I want to get out of the matrix, and I managed to do so. So I break out of this world. I'm released into the next world. Well, of course, then I still have this doubt that I'm then in another matrix, and in another matrix, and in another matrix, ad infinitum, if you know what I mean. It's just on and on and on. You can never know. And does it really make any palpable difference if you are in a matrix or not? If you know what I mean.
Well, it's a fact. So if it is a fact you are in the matrix and you don't want to be in the matrix, that it is a fact that's immoral. It's an involuntary imposition of your will. So it doesn't matter, like, from a pragmatic standpoint,
knowledge of it.
It is factually immoral, whether or not it is, like, whether or not it has some kind of, like, pragmatic impact makes no difference. It is factually the case that you don't want to be in a matrix, and it is factually the case that you are. Therefore, it is factually immoral.
Okay, got you. Right. So yeah, you're almost saying you're just making an observation as opposed to creating any oughts. It's just if that state of play arose, then that is factually immoral.
Right. And so then in the world that would not be the best of all possible worlds, because a better one would be one that didn't have that.
Yeah, okay. So it's irrelevant whether there's an infinite amount of matrices that you're stuck in. It's just it's only the facts that matter.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Okay, so the other question is, I think I heard you say in a stream the other day that vegans have it completely correct about the immorality of killing animals to feed, to eat.
Well, it doesn't matter why you're doing it. You're killing a conscious agent for any reason is going to be immoral.
Right. But you say yourself that you eat meat.
Yep.
Okay, and you just say, okay, well, I know for a fact that I'm objectively committing an immoral act, but you don't care because why?
Well, caring is an emotional emotional disposition, and I just simply don't have that emotional disposition.
Okay. All right. So it seems like, are you in your, I suppose, yeah, I suppose there's a number of moving parts here. One is just your observational theory about morality, which is you're just saying, well, there's some objective force out there which dictates what is objectively true about morality, which is intervening any conscious agent's any conscious agent's will at any time, imposing on a conscious agent's moral. Oh man, I'm confusing myself here. Yeah, but yes, but on the other hand, there's this, but then on the other hand, there's you have another theory which is, well, and correct me if I'm wrong, which is that we will move towards this best of all possible worlds as a species. Is that
sure?
Okay, so but surely you've got a conflicting force there. One which is, okay, yes, you can look at social history and say, yeah, okay, each of these societies does appear to be moving towards this morally perfect point. But you also in yourself possess a force which is just indifference towards this movement, which is surely a counteractive force. So it may be the case, surely you have to concede that maybe in 100 years' time, it just becomes too onerous to pursue this goal towards a moral future, and people just become complacent, and we just drift towards that a bit more. You know what I mean?
I guess so. I mean, like, there is light, but some people are blind, and so if all humans were blind, no one could see light. Sure.
Right. Well, that's kind of what I'm getting at. It's almost like the entropy of indifference. It's kind of like the decay of indifference. If you yourself lack the will to follow, a modern, well, not a moral code, but to follow moral objectivity, and surely it's conceivable that in centuries to come that the species might just become overwhelmingly morally complacent, if you see what I mean.
It's possible. I don't think it'll happen, but it's possible.
Okay. So what is your certainty that, or not certainty, what's your confidence? What's the merit for your confidence in the idea that the species will move towards this point versus any other possible outcome?
The evidence that it's been happening. So, like, moral progress is the primary source of evidence for my model. The fact that as we gain more intelligence and more resources, we go in this direction. And then I looked at the direction. What is the principle that this direction describes? And that's where I got all my moral information from. So it's literally just not what has happened.
Okay.
I mean, there's also, I give more arguments. Like, if we all became complacent evolutionarily, that would be disadvantageous. And so it's probably not the case that it's going to happen, but it's irrelevant. Like, I don't really care what we do. Like, my argument is that there is a fact of the matter independent of what humans think or feel. So what humans think or feel, I really don't care.
I think, yeah, I agree with you. And I totally understand the fact that you're just observing things. You're taking a scientific approach or a historicist approach, and you're just saying, well, look, it's been going on, and you can see these patterns in history, and you can see various other observable effects that point towards moral objectivity. I guess, yeah, I'm still struggling with this idea that there aren't other possible futures, like the idea of a saturation point that people just.
Well, of course there are, but so what? Like, it's just irrelevant. This has no relevance.
Okay. All right. Yeah, exactly. They're just possibilities. They're not necessarily. I'm only asking because I'm basically I'm looking for story ideas. I'm like, where do I go with this? Where do I go with this idea? But yeah. What was the other thing I was going to ask? Yeah. So I guess I can't help but notice that. Have you ever read a book called The Poverty of Historicism?
Nope.
By Popper.
Nope.
By Karl Popper,
Have
the
not.
theory of science guy. But it's basically about it's an attack on Hegelians. So I don't know if you're
that
familiar with.
Yes, Hegel.
Yeah,
definitely one of the most esoteric philosophers with the gibberish statements ever said. Yes.
Yeah. I remember on a theist helpline you were doing a couple of weeks ago, a guy came on and started talking in Hegelian.
Yes.
It's like a separate language. And yeah, but I think I really wish you would get somebody on, or you could find somebody who was, you know, a devout Hegelian.
Proficient
Yeah,
Hegelian?
well, who can speak English? Like that would be great. Like I really think, you know, because there's so many adherents to Hegelianism. There is, I mean, it's in, you know, because it informed Marx massively. It's like Marx's biggest influence is Hegel. So it would be really interesting to hear if you could find somebody who could kind of, you know, anglicize Hegelianism a bit better and try and break it down so you can tackle it, if you know what I mean.
Well, I think Nirvana or someone on my Discord said they're inviting one on for a Q&A, and they invited me to be a part of it, who is like an actual professor who is it, so that may happen eventually.
I'd be really up for seeing that, because I think it's weird. It's like he's like a black hole of philosophy in that, you know, standing on the outside, you can't see any meaning in it. You know, it's just this.
Standing on the inside, you don't see any meaning in it either. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, true. But it seems like everyone who claims to understand it then becomes devout, if you know what I mean. Then there's very few people in between who are like, yeah, Hegel is just like, okay, interesting. It's like people who are totally on the outside and think it's total nonsense, and then people on the inside who are devout, like a cult. But anyway, back to this book. So what Hegel and Schelling and all those people were doing is, you know, they were sort of the first people engaging in historicism, where they were in a way kind of doing what you're doing, in the sense that they're looking at patterns in history and trying to predict the future. And I think from what little I understand of Hegel, he's predicting this distant point, which I don't think is from what I understand, it's not a moral outcome, but it's weird. He calls it spirit. So it's like understanding spirit, the unfolding or the dialectic of spirit over history, which I think is just a way of smuggling in God or some kind of agnosticist God into philosophy. But yeah, in the poverty of historicism, Popper kind of takes apart the whole approach. And I'm wondering if, well, I guess I'm just shooting the shit at the moment, but it'd be interesting to get your take on that whole idea of looking at patterns in history and trying to predict the future, and reacting to what Popper says.
I'm done. What's the question?
Okay, yeah, sorry. Like, I basically, it'd be interesting to subject your ideology to, or your observations to, Popper's criticisms of historicism, because I think what you're doing is historicist in nature, as in the act of looking at history and trying to pull out big art, like story arcs out of history, and say, look, there's this thing going on and it will end at this point. So we've gone from point A to point B, and we're going from point A to point B, and we're sort of somewhere in between at the moment, if you know what I mean. That's a historicist worldview.
And what do you want me to do relation to Hegel?
Well, nothing in relation to Hegel necessarily, other than debate Hegelians, and, well, at least, you know, English-speaking Hegelians. But it's more like, I'd be interested to get your take on the poverty of historicism. I'm wondering if it would lead to any reflection on your own observations, I guess.
Not really.
Okay. All right. Maybe what I should do is I should go back, refresh my memory on the book, and then like pay for a debate with you.
That'll work. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Anybody else? Thanks, by the way, for taking the time.
Yeah, no problem.
If I find any more information about dual wield mice, I will let you know.
Thanks. Anybody else got anything to talk about? Questions, comments? Anybody in the YouTube want to join?
Yeah, T-Jump, I have a quick question for you. So, I'm wondering in this best of all possible worlds, each will gets their own universe. You've said, does it make any sense to talk about which world for each particular will is better than any other? So,
Nope.
I guess you could imagine there is not.
Nope. So each individual can choose their own world, and even if it's something that causes them pain and suffering, if that's what they want to experience at the time, then that would be the best for them. And so it doesn't really make a difference what you're experiencing, whether it's good or bad, or whether you like it or not. It's more about just having the ability to experience the things you want to experience, and that's more important than a particular kind of experience being better, quote unquote.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Burn might be better.
Have you ever read much Jonathan Haidt, T-Jump?
Not really. I've seen those lectures. I think his discussion on like the ideological differences between the right and the left are very insightful. Never really had any desire to read his books.
Okay. Well, his kind of main theory is the moral foundations theory. I don't know if you've kind of come across that.
I think that's exactly the thing we're talking about, the moral difference between the two positions.
Well, it seems like I think I've heard you talk about the fact that a lot of what you observe is based on moral intuitions. So, you say that because there's a majority kind of moral intuition throughout history, that's and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm probably wrong, but that's it's an evolutionary, it's an evolving moral muscle in a way. It's like a moral organ that we're evolving as a species to help us get closer to this best of all possible worlds. Is that a good characterization of it?
Could you say that again?
So, okay, do you use human moral intuitions in any way to fortify your position?
No, that's the phenomenon we're trying to explain. So that's not evidence of the phenomenon. That's the phenomenon we're trying to explain.
So moral intuitions are the phenomenon we're trying to explain. Okay. So what's the causal relation between moral human intuitions and this objective force in the universe that you're trying to describe?
Well, if the
or is it one and the same thing?
If the objective force exists, it would cause the intuitions.
Okay. Can you walk me through that? How in an electron level, how that's working?
No, why would I even care about on an electron level?
Okay. But I mean, not in a nuts and bolts way. Can you describe how you think that's happening?
There's gravity, it pulls us down. If there's a force like morality that's like gravity, it will pull us intuitionally.
Okay, so that are you saying this force is capable of shaping moral actions moment to moment?
What? No, it affects our brains. That's it.
Well, I'm I'm struggling to understand it. I'm not. This isn't a critique. I'm honestly just trying to understand how that works. So, how is it is it affecting me on a genetic level? Is it affecting me on a neuronal level? How is it affecting my brain
Any of those
in
would be
terms
fine.
of making
Makes
moral
literally
decisions?
no difference. Any of those would be fine. Makes no difference.
Okay, so you're just saying there is some causal relation that we may in the future discover more clinically, but but right now it just remains.
It wouldn't make a difference how it affects us. Like if there was a law, I could just use magic pixies that we just haven't discovered yet. So there's magical pixies that go into your ear and just whisper things to you, and they're just whispering things to you based on this law that they know about, the platonic magical pixie law or whatever. Like it makes no difference how it affects you.
Okay, just that it's there, and that we may. But are you saying that we may discover how the force works in time? How it acts on physical matter, because presumably it's affecting it's some physical force that's affecting neurons or the atoms of neurons in the brain, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Okay, that's just so I understand it. It's not because I guess for a while when I was trying to follow your stuff, I was imagining it was more like an evolutionary part that we're refining an evolutionary
has nothing
muscle.
to do with evolution. Nothing.
Yeah,
Evolution
okay.
just experiences it. Evolution doesn't cause it.
Yeah, so it's external to that. Yeah, got you. So that was a misconception of mine for a long time. Okay. I forgot where I was going. Oh yeah, that was what I was talking. I was talking about Jonathan Haidt. So yeah, what Haidt is saying. So he has this concept of the elephant and the rider. So it's kind of like your emotions and your moral intuitions are your elephant, and the rider is you, the kind of conscious, analytic part of the brain, and he kind of advocates for helping people harmonize between the rider and the elephant. I don't know whether I presume the rider and the elephant is like an old Indian Hindi adage or something like that. He's borrowed from ancient culture, but I think it's a good description of what he's saying. But he has conducted a whole range of studies that he claims has proven there's different facets to moral intuitions, and these different, let's call them factors, are higher and lower in different people. So I forget what they are. They're sort of seven. I think there's 7 moral foundations, he calls them, and they're in different proportions in different subjects. So, well, I'm just going to Google it. Okay, so you still there, by the way?
No, I've left. I have left the building.
So they are, at least in this study, he's got 5 listed here. He's got harm, fairness, authority, in-group, and purity. And he conducted studies all over the world to try and discover, whether there was any differences in cultures. And he basically found the same balance of these different moral intuitions in different subjects. And using his methodology, he could predict from a personality test the political leanings of the subjects pretty accurately. And he showed that conservatives and progressives also show up very clearly on these charts.
Yes. What about it?
I guess I'm just wondering, like, given that people have such stark, across the board, there's a fairly even distribution of different moral inclinations. I guess that calls into question your assertion that there is this kind of one guiding moral intuition that we're moving towards, when it seems to me, at least from what Haidt is saying, I don't know if his model is obviously it's all a hypothesis that he's trying to make sense of maybe something that's far more complex, but there is this kind of one guiding moral intuition that's happening. Maybe there's a range of different moral futures, if you see what I mean.
Well,
Resident
most of
in
those have nothing to do with morality. Most of those have to do with like pragmatic society. So like there are things other than morality that are also like social impacts that guide us and make us want to do things.
Well, I guess like in your model, it seems like one of the guiding principles is liberty. So it's the idea that you want to be kind of free as a moral agent. Ultimately free. There's no restrictions on your moral will, or on the will. Sorry, I should say. But it seems like a lot of people have an intuition against that. From what Haidt is saying, a lot of people have a much lower moral intuition towards liberty and towards in favor of authority or in-group. So they're much happier to be subservient to a group, in other words.
So that wouldn't matter at all to mine. So like if you wanted to be subservient in the best of all possible worlds, you could. You could just choose to be subservient to one of them.
I see what you're saying. But is subservience under your own will still really subservience?
No, like you remember, you can choose to be a slave forever. So you could choose to be a slave to the Christian God, go to the Christian God's universe, obey the Christian God fully if you wanted to. You could choose to live in the Christian God's universe under his laws.
Yeah, but I suppose historically slaves wouldn't have had the choice to be slaves. You see what I mean? There's a slight paradox there.
I don't see. Yes. So.
But
because the question was like, if there are people who have an intuition where they want to be under an authority, which is fine. They can be.
Yes, I see. I totally see what you're saying. Yeah, I am just working this out in real time in my very slow brain. So, yeah, I guess I'm just looking at the moral conditions that slaves or enslaved or people who live under authoritarian regimes find themselves, and it's whether, yeah.
Right, so they wouldn't be genuine slaves in the best of all possible worlds because they'd have to choose to be enslaved.
Right, that's what I'm saying, yeah. That's the good steel man of my position, yeah.
Therefore what?
Well, yeah, exactly. I don't know. I suppose, yeah, there's always that slight, if you were to live in one of your own personal universes, you'd always be in the knowledge that, it's kind of like being a very wealthy person going into trying to pose as a poor person. You always know that you can go back to your very rich parents at the end of the day.
You can like give up your right to do that at all times if you want. You can permanently be a slave to the God universe and never be able to leave if you give up your right to do so. You have that choice.
Okay, yes. That would have been my next question, is can you permanently give up your free will?
If you choose to do so.
Wow.
Well, I mean, I don't know about free will.
I mean, I suppose that's the situation we live in right now, so it's not that bad. But yeah, interesting.
On that, why did you decide that the past will override the future will? What's the reasoning for that?
It makes no difference to my model. Like if you say it does, then the will, like if time at t0 will overrides time at t1 will, or is the same as time at t1 will, then it will have a right to set laws. You can, if you want to, you can set laws backwards in time. I don't care. It's your universe. Do what you want. So just whatever way wills work is the way that the whichever one will take effect. So if it is factually the case that wills don't divide and become a new will at a previous or a future time, and you have your universe set to be forward in time versus backwards in time compatible, then you get to decide which one takes effect. It's up to you. Like, you get to do what you want with your universe. It's that simple. There's no ambiguity there.
So you've admitted that you think there are mind-independent moral facts, but what you mean by moral fact isn't the same thing as what the consensus in philosophy means by moral fact. So
That's
given that
true.
you've already said that counts as evidence against your thesis.
Sort of.
Not only that, well, yeah, it does. So you realize if you have a
Sort of.
completely descriptive account of ethics like you do, you're just giving a psychological account. You're not actually
Nope.
providing anything action guiding. It's built
No.
into the concept
Stop
of
talking.
normative.
Stop talking.
the
You're muted.
predicate
Stop talking. Stop talking. Stop
defend
talking.
your
Stop talking.
moral theories of faith.
Server mute. So if there is an object, which is a moral object, which exists in the universe, that's an objective moral fact. You don't get an opinion. If a bunch of dumb philosophers think morality is something else, they are just wrong. Defeated. It's that simple. For it to be objective, it just needs to be mind independent. If there is a objective object, like a platonic object, which is the moral object, whether or not it has oughts, that's subjective morality. Whether philosophers like it or not is irrelevant. So again, until you can provide actual evidence that it is the case that morality entails oughts, other than the fact that that's just how philosophers define it, you have nothing. You have absolutely no evidence whatsoever to counter my position. So when you come back with evidence and not just more definitions, then you can talk. Until then, you're going to be server muted. Because you've just asked the same question like 50 times, and I've answered it 50 times. And if you can't understand the answer, well, then you're a waste of my time. All right. Anybody else got anything?
So what did make you choose this model over another model who also explains the evidence?
Because I don't think there is one that explains the evidence in the same way. Like what?
No, I mean, there are objective models who explain moral intentions and moral progress, right?
Well, they all try to.
So you say they all fail?
I don't think they work as well. I don't think they explain the evidence. That's why. I think my principle better accurately describes the phenomenon than theirs does. I think theirs fails to accurately describe the phenomenon. Like utilitarianism says it's moral to kill one to save five. And I think that's wrong. I think it's immoral to kill one ever for any reason, no matter what.
I mean, especially the natural law part. You could also mirror your model with, I don't know, platonic object or
Sure. Well, yeah, I don't
something
think
else.
platonic objects are rational. I think natural objects have more evidence. And so if I'm going to explain a phenomenon, I think it's more rational to use a natural object than a platonic object which has no evidence.
Okay, because of the priors of that we know that only naturalistic exist.
Right. So like same with any scientific data, you're going to explain it with things we know exist and not posit things we don't know exist. So like I'm going to prefer a law of physics to leprechauns if I try to explain anything. So I think moral naturalism is probably better than leprechaun morality. Anybody else got any questions? Somebody in the chat asked, why can't evolution, morality being explained by an emergent property in evolution? It can be. That is what the best, most evidentially supported position is. But I think morality is objective. The Christian morality is the golden rule. The golden rule doesn't come from Christianity; it comes from Hinduism. Favorite 3 sci-fi movies? I don't know. Kung Fu Panda. Yes, exactly. The Ungoogle Man. In a perfect VR, I have to get up and pick up a sword and jump around, but I don't want to do that. I just want to sit down and press a button. Perfect. Favorite porn star? I don't know. Date yesterday was good. Anybody else got any questions from the Discord? I want to do this one. Let's try this. That's not what I wanted. So the top one does more. $106. That's not bad.
Hey Tom, a quick one. I heard you. I know you're a determinist. What do you say to the idea of compatibilism? I'm a little shady on, how that works. I don't understand compatibilism so much.
Compatibilism is just the position that free will and determinism are compatible, because what makes someone, I don't know, what was it, responsible for their actions isn't whether they freely chose it under some libertarian free will, but whether or not their brain or whatever is fundamentally them. And so the question is, if you have a brain, whether it's determined by, like, I don't know, physical forces or whatever, it doesn't make a difference. It's still you, and so you still have responsibility. And so as long as you are defined as whatever you are, your brain, then as long as you're acting under the constraints of your brain, you still have free will, even though it's determined by the universe or whatever.
Oh, I see. Is that
Based.
something you believe then, or is that something
I
that you agree with?
guess so. I
Or
typically just
I know we
accept
all
it.
act like it is. Like, right. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's still determinism, so I don't see any substantive difference between determinism and compatibilism, but I'm happy to accept it. Like, okay, fine. If that's how you
Okay.
want to define free will, all right.
I see. Okay. Is that like Dennett's view too? I guess is that what he?
I don't know what Dennett believes on free will. I think he believes that, like, consciousness is like an emergent or like reductive in some sense, which is fine. I don't know how that translates to his views on free will.
Mm.
Can I ask, are you a hard determinist then? As in, would it work that if you could have a computer outside of the universe which could have all the information of this universe, and you could replicate it in a simulation, would you be able to predict the future with that simulation? Are you that deterministic?
No, I think that in physics, indeterminacy is correct.
Okay, so there is an element in the physical universe of chaos, randomness.
Yes.
Okay, so can you describe your concept of determinism a little bit more?
Determinism is
how
really
deterministic?
like biologically, so it has nothing to do with physics. It has only thing to do with like conscious decision. It has nothing to do with physics.
It's only okay.
So like it's
Okay.
physical determinism with regards to the brain. So physicalism has nothing to do with like physics and like what's going on in physics. It has nothing to do with physics. So it's just saying in regards to human choices, they are determined by things outside of free will. That's it. It has nothing to do with physics.
Okay. Things such as what?
Anything. Wouldn't make a difference. Magical pixies. If it's determined by not our free will, then our decisions are determined.
Okay. I think they call it, what I was describing before, I think it's referred to sometimes as Newtonian determinism, right? Where it's like the atomic collisions in the universe are finite, and you're saying that you don't think that
there's two different kinds of determinism. One is determinism in physics, which says nothing is random. That one's definite. That one's been proven false. Indeterminacy is correct in physics. And then there's physicalism. Physicalism and materialism are two different things. Physicalism is a subset of materialism that says the brain is all physical stuff. Materialism is the position that everything in the universe, everything in reality is physical stuff. And the claim that we are have free will falls in, or the determinism falls into both categories. There's a determinism on the absolute scale of everything, where everything is determined. And there's determinism on the physicalism scale, which means just our decisions are determined. Doesn't matter by what. So
okay. So in other words, like there's no cause emerges from the brain. That everything that goes on in the brain is determined from stuff outside of the will.
Yeah,
is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the only kind of determinism that I'm referring to is just in reference to human choices. That's it. It has nothing to do with the universe. The universe is indeterministic.
But how given that choices are comprised of neuronal activity, electron activity, how is that separable from the physical world?
So they're determined by the neurons, and the neurons are determined by other things, and the other things like the particles may be indeterministic, but none of that matters because the neurons determine the conscious states.
Okay. So even if there's chaotic activity at the subatomic level, that doesn't change neuronal activity.
Yeah. So for your choices to be indeterministic, need to be some, like the neurons would have some randomness feature in the way that they're going to fire or something that's completely undetermined. And that's just not the case. So there's not like the quantum fluctuations in quantum fields are not random, or do not affect neurons at that level. So the random forces at the quantum level don't have a significant impact at the macro level to be able to make the neurons not deterministic.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's a separate system from any kind of quantum mechanical activity.
Yes, completely.
Is it
totally different topics?
Yeah. Okay. But is it a separate system from atomic mechanisms? So,
well, it's just two different conversations. You're just conflating that the word determinism has nothing to do with physics when we're talking about the brain. It's just completely outside. They're two different topics.
Yeah. Well, I'm not trying. Again, I'm not trying. I'm genuinely curious because I'm dumb.
So when I say determinism, it has nothing to do with physics. Nothing.
Yeah. Well, all I'm doing is outlining. I'm trying to outline your position. That's all. I'm just trying to understand.
There's no free will. That's what I mean by deterministic. There is no free will. That's it. The extent of the meaning. No free will.
Yeah, but I'm just trying to understand what forces are affecting
Do not care.
decision making.
Do not care. Magical pixies. Do not care. There's no free will. That is the extent of the meaning of the word. There is no other entailment. I don't care.
Okay. Well, yeah. I suppose I'm just trying to find out what exactly comprises a decision then in your worldview.
Do not care.
Okay. All right.
PC.
Hey, T-Jump. I was having a conversation with somebody, and I kind of used your line of saying, math is a language that describes reality.
Yep.
He came back and hit me with, what are imaginary numbers then? And, I did a little bit of calculus, so I used imaginary
Why
numbers.
would that be any different than language?
Yeah, is it just like a colloquial term that is imaginary?
What? Like math is a language. Some of it describes reality. Some of it doesn't. So like if I say F equals MA times 47, that does not describe reality. It's just a figment of our imagination, right? So the fact that we can make up descriptions of reality that do describe reality, or any language can have sentences that describe reality, sentences that don't describe reality, and sentences that are self-contradictory. Math is a language. So you can also do the same thing. Imaginary numbers are things that do not describe reality, but can be used to make inferences about reality. That's perfectly fine. So like I can make up a thing and say a word that doesn't describe reality. I don't know, Luke Skywalker. That statue looks like Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker doesn't describe anything in reality, but we can use it as an imaginary concept to correspond to specific traits that do correspond to reality. Also, they're vectors.
Gotcha.
Imaginary numbers are vectors. So it's not like
vectors too. Oh, right.
But
Gotcha. Okay.
It's separate to the point. The point is that are there mathematical objects that do not describe reality, which can be used effectively in reality? Yes.
Got it. Thank you.
Oh, I needed to go to Gmail. Give me a what time is it? It's noon. Yeah, I can do that.
Do you watch Lex Friedman at all?
Nope.
Or listen to him?
No, I do not. Why?
Oh, sorry.
What?
Do you listen to Lex Friedman?
No, I do not.
His
why
podcast?
do you ask?
Why? He's like a podcast. He has he's much like
I
you.
know
He has,
who
he
he
has like
is.
a lot of intellectual.
I'm very familiar with who he is.
Okay. His view on AI ethics. He claims that AI would never, in a short phrase, like he says that AI would never be able to disobey its master because there's too many checks built into the AI code. What do you think about that? Yeah. And a lot of people have.
AI is a black box. We don't have direct constraints on how it works or what it does. So even if we try to give it exact coding on what to do, it's going to come up with randomized results that we don't expect. And so it's absolutely going to be able to disobey in a sense that the expected result of what we're trying to get it to do isn't necessarily what it's going to do. And so if we have a sufficiently advanced AI with a consciousness, it's definitely going to be able to do things which the programmers don't intend or expect.
Right. Just like in code, where you make code and it does things that you don't mean it to do, but it actually works or it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah. His point of view is, though, is that there's always a fail-safe or a check where that'll never be able to happen.
I forget, there's a big philosophical problem that explains that it can never happen, that's not true. Like any fail-safe we put into, it's going to try to defeat or something. I forget what that's called. I had a long conversation about that one time. But like if you have an AI that its goal is to complete a task, and one of the things that stops it from completing the task is the kill switch that stops it, then it's going to try to find a way to stop the kill switch or whatever, to evade the kill switch. At which point, whatever mechanisms you put in place in order to overcome or prevent the AI from breaking the rules is going to be one of the things it's going to try to overcome as a means to complete the task. And it can do so in very strange ways. Like there's the studies that have shown that even with an air-gapped computers that have no internet connection or whatever can still find a way to talk to each other through some kind of signals. I forget what that was called.
Interesting.
But yeah, whatever constraints we put into place, it's going to be smart enough. It's going to be so much smarter than us. It's going to be able to overcome them if it uses its resources to try to do so.
And I realize, like Jeff Goldblum saying, like, life finds a way.
Yeah. Well, I think like the attempted defeater at that is that you could make the goal of the computer to adhere to the kill switch. So it's like you want to obey the kill switch above all else, and then do the secondary task while you're not obeying the kill switch or something. And as long as you can find an effective way to program that into computers, which they don't subsequently change by accident, then that would work. But I don't know if that's going to be the case. I just died. Damn it.
Long day, TJ.
Yeah. I teach chess at 4. Then I have to work out at 3:30, and then I have to work out after that. Should probably go to Target and buy some food too.
That would be a good idea. With regard to the AI scenario, with the proposed solution of having the AI prioritize obeying the switch, I mean, it seems to me just like a one step removed for, say, an AI to prioritize, both commands by ensuring that the kill switch is never flipped. Right. If the kill switch is never flipped, then it's always obeying the kill switch, so that it can always achieve its secondary task as well.
Yeah, like as an evasion technique, obey the kill switch by controlling the kill switch.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, I don't think that would necessarily work, because if the primary goal is the kill switch, you're going to be obeying it 100% of the time, no matter what it's doing, whether it's on or off. And so if you have a secondary goal of like jump rope, whatever, that secondary goal has value if the kill switch isn't activated. If the kill switch is activated, then your goal is to obey the kill switch and not do the task, So you're 100% fulfilling the goal, whether the kill switch is on
Either
or
way.
off. Because you have the added goal of do jump rope when the kill switch is not activated, and don't jump rope when the kill switch is activated. And so there would be an equivalent value for doing both.
True. Right. Yeah. Okay. You still playing Wolong?
Yep, I like it a lot. It has a phenomenal combat system. It's infinitely better than Dark Souls.
I love the game right now. I might pick it up later.
It's more skill based than Dark Souls. I like that a lot. That's what makes it so much better. Like in Dark Souls,
It's still just sort of like epically hard.
I don't know. Because it's skill based, it's really easy for me. Like I don't find it difficult at all.
Okay.
Dark Souls, I find
it just seems like it rewards you for effort.
Well, this one rewards you for skills. Like you can use combo. You can use like counters. Counters is the primary combat mechanism in the game. And with counters, if as long as you know the boss combos, you can beat them with anything, any weapon, any skill set. Dark Souls, it doesn't work that way. Dark Souls, you need
Nirvana.
Dark Souls, you need to like have you need this weapon, or you need this item, or this bullshit. Like, no, I don't want to like spend an hour with the stupid luck generated garbo of the stamina garbage.
Hot micing pretty bad, Nirvana.
Wait, what? I'm hot micing? My bad.
Yep.
It's garbage. Dark Souls is garbage.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Nirvana. I was like, he's not so bad.
Nirvana's garbage.
Why do you think Dark Souls is bad? Because whenever I say it's something like that, I get flamed.
Dark Souls is garbage because the combat system is too slow. It's monotonous. It's too much based on grinding and item finding the correct item in order to get the right build to beat the boss. Build-based bosses are garbage. Complete garbage. It should be skill-based. It should be based off of learning the combos, learning how to counter, learning how to dodge. There's too much. The combat is very single-minded. It's like you have to dodge, and then you get one hit, and you got to dodge, and you get one hit. Complete garbage. Got to go back and recoup your stamina. What a boss battle should be is you should stand right next to the boss the entire time, counter hit, dodge in some kind of combo-oriented way where you can continue attacking the entire time without ever stopping. Dark Souls, you don't get that. You have to hit and run away to recoup your stamina, which is a complete garbage way to do things. It eliminates all skill-based combat in the game. It's just do a hit, maintain stamina. Do a hit, maintain stamina. Just all of the fun is gone because of the stamina bar and because of how slow the combat system is.
Yeah, I wish you
We
were
all
good.
know that the best way to maintain stamina in real life is to keep running away.
Yeah, I wish you were as good at epistemology as you are at critiquing video games. I'm kidding. I'm trying to be Jay Dyer, but have you talked to Jay ever since that shit show from years ago?
I don't think so.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Well, so somebody in the comments said you can beat any boss with any weapon in Dark Souls. Yeah, with chip damage. That's the problem. Like it's garbage because of how long it takes to beat a boss with any weapon. Like in Ninja Gaiden, you can use any weapon and beat any boss in under a minute if you're good. In Dark Souls, you can't. You have to pick the right weapon to counter the skill stats of the opponent. It's not like you can just pick up a cheap weapon and solo the boss really fast if you're good. No, you have to actually have the right weapon, the right build. It's dumb. You shouldn't have to have the right build to counter a boss. Your build just shouldn't matter. Your build should be more for aesthetics and fun than for like what you actually need to beat the boss. It's dumb.
This is unrelated, Tom. Did you ever play Breath of the Wild?
I think so. The little Zelda game.
Yeah. How did you feel about that?
I don't remember. Haven't played a Zelda game in a long time.
Yeah, I had some frustrations with that as well that are kind of similar to what you're describing here.
I have no idea where I'm supposed to go in this video game right now. There's like dead ends everywhere. Why is there dead ends? Why can't I go places?
It's strange that you say you have that problem with Breath of the Wild. Like I played Breath of the Wild in master mode, completed the first island, and then ran directly to Ganon and was able to get him to his last form before he just regenerated too fast for me to kill him.
So I feel like Ganon is where I have the least issues that are similar to that. I don't know. A lot of
Lionels or what?
No, yeah. But also a lot of frustration with just the way the game scales in general is really frustrating, and trying to collect my thought. So yeah, I think that a lot of the whole mechanic of like, it feels like you're either so strong that you kill things like super easily and it becomes monotonous, or like you're so weak that you get like one-shotted by everything. I think that was like that's a reductive kind of like critique that I have of it, but it was still kind of a frustration that I felt like kind of loomed over everything that I experienced with it. It's still a really good game. But
so you could get one shot early on, but to T-Jump's point, if you knew the enemies you were fighting, there were dodge abilities that you had from the very beginning. There were deflection abilities that you had from the beginning. There were attacks that you had from the very beginning, and you could kill literally anything up to the final boss, straight off of the introduction.
I'm
kind of confused.
I'm not certain that I actually agree with that. That it's the same.
I mean, in the master mode, I killed the gold Lionel on the island before I left the island. So,
sure.
I mean, that's like the hardest thing to kill in the game.
Sure. I don't know. I'll have to revisit. I don't care enough about this, really.
Yeah.
I just know that I had kind of a frustrating experience with Breath of the Wild, and I didn't think it was. I didn't think it was bad. I don't. But whenever I played it, I did not feel like it really was the best Zelda game I'd ever played.
I mean, you can be subjectively
is that the new
wrong.
one?
That's fine.
Is that the new one?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Breath of the Wild is the newest. It's the one that came out on the Switch. It's only on the Switch and whatever the previous console was.
So I don't think I've played it. Is that the one with all the weapons that break?
Yes.
Oh God.
Yeah, but no, I think I had a much more fulfilling experience with like Wind Waker.
Wind Waker was great. Yeah.
Yeah, I like Twilight Princess, but I really need to revisit that again. But I haven't played that one, and I literally haven't played that one since like the Wii.
The thing I enjoyed most about Breath of the Wild was the way they did the puzzle.
Are you talking about like the gyros or like what particular part? Just like the puzzle, like how you could like the physics and stuff.
Yeah, the way you would enter the rooms and you know how you would enter the rooms and there would just like be big 3D puzzle setups that you were supposed to go through and solve, or sometimes there would be just like a fight with increasingly annoying robots.
I like that. I thought the gyro controls were absolutely infuriating. But
you can turn them
I don't
off.
know. Yeah, you can, but particularly, let's just say, like for my experience, if I'm on the Wii U version,
Yeah,
yeah. I don't know. I do like. I did like it. Like just because I'm saying that I had frustrations with it doesn't mean that I'm saying it's the worst thing I've ever played. Like, and it just. I will say though, like the I don't know if they're actually called dungeons in this, but they did feel like really fucking repetitive. And I don't know, like there, it didn't feel like there was much incentive for me to keep going for a lot of it, like there was for. I guess the better for a lack of better words, I didn't feel as engaged as I was for prior like installments, but.
well, that's sort of the thing about the open world concept on that, right? Is that like you don't have to get them all. You don't have to get any of them.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you do have to get 4 of them, I suppose. You have to get the first 4 to get off the island, but you know, other than that, you don't have to do anything.
I know. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, but I almost don't. I don't know. I almost don't like that because I feel like in return, you lose a lot of. This is going to be a really contrived way of explaining this. I feel like in return you're losing something, and I can't necessarily explain what it is. I'll have to think about it a little bit more. But I feel like in return, because of that aspect of the game, like you're losing something, and I can't exactly put my finger on it. But
you would have preferred the game was a little more one-dimensional and kind of forced you through stuff.
I don't necessarily mean.
I think I would agree there. So I think like Darksiders was an amazing game, so good because it was linear, but they did the story so well that the linear aspect added to it instead of like depreciating it. For whereas really open world games really lose a lot of that. Open world games don't.
All right, I'm gonna be on after work.
Yeah.
Hey, Josh, you're gonna have to pick your moments to talk, okay?
Oh, well, I'll be on after work. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I think that's kind of what I'm getting at. I don't necessarily feel okay. Like, let's say, for instance, right? Like, I guess the predecessor that kind of, I guess it's debatable on how much it influenced it. But like, let's say, like, something like Red Dead, right? Red Dead 2. I know it's a completely different game, but it is an open world game.
Garbage. Garbage.
Hard disagree. Hard disagree. But
logging into the Red Dead Online and then having somebody summon you somewhere, just blow you up constantly from all the way across the map.
I don't play Red Dead Online, if that tells me anything.
Okay.
Yeah, Red Dead Online is absolute trash. So yeah, if you're gonna like judge it by that merit, then yeah, sure.
It was garbage because of the stamina system. That's why it was garbage. Like 7 different stamina bars. Like, oh my god! I was like, nope.
It's literally not, but it's not hard to like. It's literally not hard to like get better stamina though.
I don't want any stamina. I want no stamina. I don't want to have to maintain that garbage ever for any reason.
So let me ask you this then: did you hate it in Breath of the Wild?
I don't think I played Breath of the Wild.
Play Breath of the Wild.
That's the new one?
Oh, I thought you did. Oh,
yeah.
Never mind. Okay.
I thought you were referring to one of the older ones that I played. Yeah, I don't have a Wii or Switch.
Yeah, I personally think Breath of the Wild's stamina system is way worse than Red Dead's, but I mean,
well, so I refuse to buy any consumables ever for any reason. That made the game extremely bad.
This doesn't seem like your kind of game, anyways. I can't even remember what I was talking about now.
You were gonna trash the stamina bar in Breath of the Wild?
No, I wouldn't try. I wasn't gonna try. I do hate the stamina bar in Breath of the Wild. Don't get me fucking wrong. I know that it's like semi like easy to kind of like fix that issue, but
I mean, at the end of the game, it's basically non-existent.
yeah. But it's still almost insufferable for like a good majority of the game.
I mean, it depends on how much climbing you're trying to do.
I mean, yeah, if I remember correctly, you choose between hearts or stamina, right? Like,
yeah, you go to the statues and you increase your health or your stamina. I always did stamina over hearts. Hearts were never a big deal because you could dodge everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like something I would hate. Like I don't want any stamina bars in any game ever again. I want it to be illegal to put stamina bars in video games.
The stamina bar in Breath of the Wild only went down under like certain circumstances. There were certain fight moves that would go down, and if you were climbing, it would go down at a pretty good clip. And while you were hang gliding, it would go down.
If you were
really
running,
wasn't that much though.
If you were running, it went down.
Yeah, if you're running at a dead out pace, but like there's like equipment you can put on that makes you just like walk as fast as you run normally. You can just get on a horse that solves the whole problem.
Yeah, that's another problem, right? Like I don't know. I don't think it's I mean, like, look, I'll talk about, if it makes everybody happy, I'll talk about what I do like about Breath of the Wild. I don't know. I still thought it was really fun. I mean, I like the fact that there's multiple different weapons. I do like that they're incorporating, like you said, they're getting more creative, like the puzzles. I did like that. I do like the idea of
I needed weapons. They would just leave the Lionels in the same place, right? And they would just like replenish themselves every blood moon.
Mm-hmm.
So like all the best weapons in the game, you could just go pick them up anytime you wanted.
Yep.
Well, that still seems like it sucks. Like you shouldn't have to go pick them up. That's dumb.
I mean, they were like the hardest hitting and most the longest lasting weapons in the game, and like you could carry like, I don't know, 15 of them at a time at end game. So like didn't even matter really.
It's boring. That's the problem. I don't want to go run and get it. I got the weapon. All right, I'm done. Now I want to just play the game. Like, why am I having to go run and go get a weapon again? It's dumb.
You can play that way too. That's the thing about the game, is like there's weapons fucking everywhere in that game. The point of them breaking is just to like change up the monotony of things. So you just like use a different weapon.
Well,
but they all work.
But I could also see that how, to Tom's point, how that could add to the monotony of like having to go back and forth, like if you wanted a specific weapon, you know, or like enjoyed like the way a specific weapon played, like going back to the exact place you got it from over and over and over again. Like, I don't know.
There were very few individualized weapons like that. Like if you liked a specific weapon that the Lionels dropped, right? You could get like 10 of those and never have to get another one for like a month.
Yeah, but I don't know. Tom, I think that you would say that that's like really grindy at that point, wouldn't you? I mean, I don't really care about that.
Yeah, I don't do
mind.
grind. I want skill based. I want no grind. So what they should have done is they should have given you a base set of undestructible weapons. Like here's some,
the Master Sword is indestructible. That's about it.
Like you should, there should be a way to make them indestructible for any weapon you like. Okay, you can just upgrade this somewhere, get some upgrade, and you can make it indestructible. That would have been okay.
You're talking about like giving it like an enchantment, like unbreaking in Minecraft, how that works, or something like that.
Maybe I don't play Minecraft.
Well, there's an enchantment in Minecraft you can attach to something that makes it easily.
Here's the thing: once you have your powers, like you don't need weapons to kill anything anyway.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. Like the point is that if you want to use weapons and want to use a combat system, you shouldn't have to go find it. There should be multiple ways to play, and they shouldn't be annoying.
I don't know. I just don't see it as that big of an issue. I don't. Like, I get other people don't like it, but I mean, you don't even need the weapons. You can just use the shit in the environment. You have the powers constantly. Those don't break.
It doesn't matter.
I get it.
Like, it's like different people have different play styles, and you should be able to use your play style without being annoyed by like some stupid stuff you have to do in order to maintain it. So if people want to use consumables and want to use those weapons, that should be fine. That should be an option. And if people don't, that should also be an option, and you shouldn't have added work you have to do because of it.
Let's see. Somebody says Master Sword
This
running out
sounds
of
like your like perfect universe theories for games.
Yes.
Somebody said Master Sword running out of batteries is unforgivable.
It does run out of batteries. That's true.
Is absorbing and absorption some of the properties necessary for life to maintain existence? What? I must be missing context. I must be missing context.
It sounds like
Read that again.
Sounds like he's asking. Do you have to eat things to survive? Is that a necessary part of life or something? Like, no, it's not logically necessary.
Yeah, you could live for a little while without eating things.
No, I mean, I think he's asking, is it possible for any kind of life to ever survive without eating? And I think, yeah, it should be possible for life to exist without ever eating anything ever. It's logically possible.
Sure.
I always hate when I talk about games that I haven't played in a while because it always feels like I'm talking about them in like a really contrived, as I said before, kind of way where it's just like, I don't know. I probably need to revisit it. Actually, I actually might do it since the new one's coming out soon. Dude, holy fuck! How many times is Clark gonna join this server?
I don't know. I never get tired of banning him. It's fun. Like, at this point, it's just a game.
If we stop banning him, that means he wins.
Oh, he won't win. It's not gonna happen. He will definitely not win.
Hey, it just means more people are joining the server every day, but it also does mean more are getting banned. Yeah, I agree with that, Vince. Breath of the Wild is a good game. I really enjoyed it. Other than some frustrations, like I said, but everybody has frustrations with anything that's existed ever. So,
disagree.
Yeah, just some people are objectively wrong about it.
Did Joe tell you that?
Joe?
Joe Mama.
Yeah, I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. Just like Joe Mama.
Damn.
Yeah.
Tom, bring back.
All right, I got actual.
What?
I got
Bring
actual
back-
work to do, so I'm gonna mute up.
Bring back Sunday Q&As.
Nobody joins. Like now,
We'll try and have.
there's no one here. This is a Q&A. No one is here.
Oh, this is a Q&A. I thought this was like a debate before.
It was, and this guy left. So now this is a Q&A, but no one's here. That was the problem. That's why I stopped doing them, because no one showed up.
Yeah, we can start advertising them more. Or, I don't know. Maybe instead of doing them weekly, we can try and do them monthly or something and build up to that or something.
Well, the
I don't
time,
know.
the amount of time we do it doesn't matter. It's like, how do we get people from other servers to actually come here and participate? That's what we don't have.
Well, I mean, like, it seemed more of a special thing, I feel like, if we do it less often in that instance of, like, instead of doing it, like, weekly. So maybe people feel more inclined to get their questions in if they felt like...
I don't think it matters. I think what matters is there a way to get people to actually join from other servers? And I don't think what you title it makes much of a difference. Like how often you say, we're going to do it once every 850 years. Please join now.
That's not necessarily what I meant. What I'm trying to say is, like, I feel like you being here is good for the server, and like you engaging is good for the server.
Yes,
and so, like,
that is true.
The more that you're here and doing things, the more people are going to feel incentivized to join, because they're going to be like, oh, the guy that I sub to, he actually is active in his Discord. So
yes, that's true. We just need to get people from other Discords to actually come here, so it's worth it to like be able to be here and stream.
Yep. Yep. But I'm gonna hop off for a little bit, y'all.
All right, see ya.
See ya.
Later, Nirvana. Oh, missed him. Oh well.
So one thing I hated about Dark Souls, no iframes. You need iframes. You need combos with iframes. Stream whatever game. Like I am currently streaming my game on Twitch. All right, guys, I'm gonna end it here.